Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rightest Leftist. Uh, Me, Nathan Ogilvie. Uh, I assume that a lot of people have to go out on a Friday, but I'm not one of those people, and I hope that a few of you aren't either, so we can have a night in and have a chat about politics. This is actually my first live stream on my own. I've done a few with my friend Tony Tonkin and Troy a couple of months ago. It's my first time just live streaming to everybody. Um, while we wait till people jump in, so because I don't know how much interest there'll be in this at all, I've already seen some comments coming in. I thought the first thing I'll talk about, I was going to do it as its own video, but I thought probably just better to rant about while we're going live. Um, I'm a virgin, not quite a virgin. I've got a child, so I've had sex at least once, but fair enough. How's the mic? Might be a bit louder. I'll step away from it a bit. There we go. So, I wanted to do a review of the Friendly Jordies show that I saw about a month ago now. I think it was on the 2nd of April. So, I'm a fan of Friendly Jordies, particularly his comedy, and I do like watching his YouTube show. And so I went to see his comedy show, which is called End of the World. I tried to put a picture up of it, but I think I had the wrong file format. So basically, what it is his premise was that he believes that the world is ending, and the reason is because we have democracies. And because it was a comedy show, I assumed that he was joking, as I would imagine Friendly Jordies being a Labour supporter, thought he sort of believed in government. But as the show went on, his premise was basically that in democracies, every adult in the population gets a vote, and then he showed, as he does with comedy, examples of the word he used. We're cutting out. Okay, let me just fix this. How's the audio now? I'll go a bit higher. How's the audio? Everyone? Yep, audio should be good. Yep. I might put it up closer to the mouth and then just talk quieter so it doesn't pop. Yeah, so basically, I think I'm a few minutes. I think we have to avoid using certain words in the first couple of minutes of a stream. Kind of revert it. Let me see if I can. How's that? Let me fix that. Let's try. Is that better? Getting rid of the background noise. StreamYards are fun. I'm using a StreamYard software. Usually it's pretty good though. All right. So Friendly Jordies is basically saying that we're in a democracy. Half the population is below the average intelligence, so we're letting retarded people vote. And then he sort of provided a bunch of examples of different country towns that he's gone to, and showed examples of everyday Australians. And basically, the main example he provided from Victoria, because obviously doing the Melbourne show, was the current mayor of Geelong. If you look him up, he and ask questions too. I'm seeing some people ask questions, so that's what we're here for. I'll talk. We'll be on the live stream for about an hour or so and just have a chat. Ask any questions you want in the chat. I see some One Nation / Labour related questions. A lot of thoughts on that. But basically, I thought that it's hard to tell with Friendly Jordies if he's joking or not. But essentially, the premise of his show was that, and the comparison he used was China. That China being a one-party state has gotten so much done. So why do we let the people have a vote? Because it slows things down. And it's sort of, I'll take it, at face value that he's being serious in the show. That obviously on his YouTube channel, he's pro Labor. It does put a lot of things in perspective because he's clearly very pretty much anti every other party, like, in particular for the Greens. If anyone knows from you're new to you haven't seen my channel for very long or you know my channel, I'm I used to be a member and then left that party, now an independent, but he pretty much hates them with a passion. He's always said the political party he hates the most is the Nationals because of what they offer versus who they represent, the massive discrepancy there. In terms of the Liberal Party, he's obviously opposed to them and was, he got famous during, he started his channel about 2013 when Tony Abbott prime minister. So, he was sort of getting famous through the Liberal Party's reign. And that's, you get that counterculture that's sort of happening in the US at the moment, like Joe Rogan and Theo Von, and that is they were the counterculture when they had Trump on and Trump was cool. And then now that Trump's doing what he's doing, the vibes sort of shift. Friendly Jordies has it's an interesting place now because Labour won back in 2022 and they won again last year. He's now establishment. And I'd be interested to see, his whole point about a one-party state and how China basically can get anything they want through. Because in China, if you don't know their system, Xi Jinping, basically their economy is tied to him. So anything that he wants done will get done. So that's where they've been able to build entire cities within a couple of weeks. Their clean energy investment, I was just looking at the numbers over the last couple of years, has been in like the tens of billions of dollars, just project after project. And he was basically saying, essentially, the point was Australia should be like that as well. And then obviously, the bulk of the show was the comedy, and I think it's already finished now. There might be one more show in Sydney, so it's a bit too late to see it. But I would highly recommend it. And then get thinking about how parties operate in Australia because we have the rise of One Nation, and they are rising in response to a lot of frustration with the Labor government. And what I'm trying to do in this channel is, rather than advocate for any party, just unpack the policies and have a look at what's going on so we can all be more informed. I'm a mental health professional. That's my background. I, I know a lot about that field, but all the other areas of politics I'm learning too. So what I'm trying to do with this channel is unpack that because obviously there was the comic angle to what Friendly Jordies was saying, but I also don't want Australia to actually be a one-party state, and the right-wing party is very fractured. I don't actually think that's a good thing because when any party, even if I agree with it or not, has all the power, that has that corrupting influence. And I think if we look at all the thing with China was he didn't talk about any of their human rights abuses, any of the horrible, they have a lot of like OHS laws. They don't have a lot of safety and protection for workers and everyday people that we have in Australia that have been hard fought for. And pretty much in terms of the government and corporations being one and the same in China, I don't think we really actually want that in Australia. So I guess I genuinely can't tell if Jordan actually means it or not. But I came away from the show thinking, at the very least, he clearly advocates for a two-party state. Like he doesn't like the idea of the European model where you have, some countries have 4, 5, even 6 major parties that form different coalitions as the needs of countries change. And I'm a big advocate for that. Like he basically hates the cross stitch and thinks it slows everything down. The example he cites a lot is Tasmania, because Tasmania is a mess. So that's actually a pretty good example of how it can go poorly. If you look at other countries, like the Nordic countries, other UK again, they still have their major parties attacking. They were kind of a two-party system. Now they're all a bit over the place. You can have a multi-party country can work well if they can start forming coalitions. And the way they do that, kind of like with the Gillard government and the Greens, sort of had to do that when no party has a majority. But it's odd that Friendly Jordies is on the other end of that, basically advocating for Labor government just being a one party. Because then my instant counterpoint is like, well, what if it was if Peter Dutton got in and it was a one party state under someone that you didn't like? It's like it's all well to have a one party state there for the people and the things that you want. But if you're not getting that, then that's the concern. Anyway, overall, good show. A little bit like, Friendly Jordy's videos are pretty like controversial as it is, but he was going hard at a live show. If you like that kind of thing, definitely go see his next live show is coming up. starting another one for next year. So definitely get on that if you like that kind of content. I'll answer a couple of the questions now. We'll just go back and forward. I don't know how long we'll do this, probably till 9:30 or so, but I'm already seeing some good questions. Okay, so do you think if Labor reduced immigration, that they could stop One Nation? Yeah, so, okay, immigration. I'm actually preparing a long form video on that now because I know I'm already getting quite a few One Nation viewers watching me, and on the other side, Labor viewers. My predominant majority of my viewers are Labor supporters. Even though I'm not a Labor member or necessarily a supporter right now, like I'm an independent. I have no idea who I'm gonna vote with. I'm a Victorian from Victoria, got no idea who I'm gonna vote for in the Victorian election. So no idea, but it is a good question, and this is what I'm starting to ask because sometimes there's kind of 2 well, there's more than that. In terms of voters, these people's frustrations, some people are just genuinely contrarian and they're just anti whoever's in power, and they'll find something to complain about, uh, for the sake of it, and so some people would say, um like if Labor go, all right, we're so One Nation's policy, as I understand it, because it's on their website, 130 net overseas migration. So it's like all the people coming into Australia minus all the people who leave in a year is about 130,000. So I actually agree with that. So shock, I agree with One Nation's policy. I don't agree with the deportation stuff until I see how they're actually going to implement because they want to deport a bunch of illegals. I don't necessarily believe that because they haven't properly. When you see where that number's based, it's an estimate. And the irony of One Nation is they're happy to use estimates when it suits them, but then when there's estimates around climate change, things like that, they suddenly don't count. So there's more to say on that. But I think Labor's policy. I've been trying to track down their number. It looks like 190,000, but they have a few different pathways and programs. So I think it's actually probably higher than that. Could be close to 250,000. Last year, for anyone who doesn't know, the net overseas migration was 306,000, which is way too high. I think any sensible person would agree that it's way too high. If you look at what it was the year before, it was about 426, and the year before that, 426, I think, was the peak over that year. But they track it. So the way they do it is every 3 months they release a report, and then that looks at the year before. So they'll still do reports like March, June, September throughout the year, and it doesn't just look at this from that year; it's the whole year. And one of those reports, it got to over 500,000. I think it was like March or June 2023. So that year before that, 12 months before that report, there was net overseas migration of over 500,000. And that is way too much. And we could go into like why. It started under ScoMo because when COVID ended, we had net negative migration and there were farmers groups, healthcare groups, not they didn't have enough workers and they needed work. Unfortunately, this is a problem that One Nation's going to have to answer. How do we fill those jobs? It's all well and good to reduce migration, but if Aussies don't do the jobs, what do they expect? Like we're just going to have these shortages in these industries. I think that's their biggest question they're going to have to ask because as they rise in popularity, they're going to get more scrutiny, and I don't actually see an answer to that yet. Maybe they have one. If there's any One Nation people here, you can answer what that is. When we had the example of fruit shortages, health worker shortages during um, ScoMo, who was he's the right winger, is not One Nation. His solution was to open up the doors and let more migrants in. Because even though it peaked in 2022, 23, so technically Albo was elected, but you see the curve started in 2021 and Labor wasn't in power then. So if Labor say, okay, we'll agree with One Nation, we'll go to 130, I think there's a lot more of other One Nation policies, and again, those contrarians who probably will never vote for Labor. So I think the answer would be no. You might win a few over if like immigration is their only issue and that's all they want, and Labor does it. You might win a few of them, but I don't know how many that is. It'd be an interesting question to ask. I'm hoping to have some One Nation people on soon, see what they actually think about that. Because uh, is the mic still a problem? Yeah, my mic is. I do need to upgrade it. Usually, StreamYard's good, so hopefully, other people are able to hear me at least, even if the audio quality is not. I can't do much about that. Um, Yeah, but the people are retarded. That was Friendly Jordy's quote, yeah. He's very blameful of voters, which I find that's the other part of the argument I disagreed with is, like, 'cause he was making fun of country towns like Mackay and places like that. The whole point of democracy is that the people in communities know what they need, and who cares if they're not because his other like, the main way I'd sum it up, he said, like, democracies are based on because the average IQ is 100, democracies get policies based on 100 IQ because that's who gets, people to vote. And he's like, "We need people who vote who are 200 IQ ideas," which, if we look at some of the geniuses of 200 IQ and then look at some of their ideas, being super intelligent like that doesn't necessarily mean you have good policies or ideas. So again, Friendly Jordy, he's on my top at least my top 3 people I'd interview aside from, like, Carl Kalinske and, actual politicians like Obama or Trump or someone, which I'm probably never interview. I think Friendly Jordies will be realistic, and I would like to chat with him about it to see what he actually believes because he's gotten really cynical lately. He did another interview with a smaller channel. Could find a link to that. He had a pretty cool, pretty in-depth interview, but, yeah, he does have some interesting ideas, let's say that. Gonna do Pokemon content like the Sloan Zone. The Sloan Zone, I get compared to him a lot, even though my videos are a bit more longer form. He's probably, like, if I was compared to one other YouTuber in terms of what we do, both being Australia. I don't know if he's independent. I know he left the Liberal Party, so we both recently left a party that we'd supported for a while. I left the Greens, he left the Liberals, and we've kind of ended up in the same place where we kind of left-wing Labor adjacent, but not really supporting any particular party, just looking at policies. I love Pokemon. I mean, I'm a millennial kid, so yeah, suggest me some Pokemon ideas. I will always probably relate it to politics on this channel. So, maybe I'll do, the politics of Kanto and Johto or something like that. Do they even have politics in Pokemon? I don't remember. Um, yeah, back in the '80s, the left-wing position in regards to immigration was to be controlled as to much migration put down. That's pretty much true. And real migration wave, it's come in waves in Australia, even back to the gold rush, bringing in Chinese workers in the 1800s. John Howard really is responsible for the wave of migration in the 2000s, even though there was a stop the boats and the Kevin Rudd stuff all around offshore processing and all that debacle. Look at the just the trend line of migration, and it really took off on John Howard. Um, my only concern with that is Australians don't do like with healthcare. So healthcare work. I'll talk in the industry that I understand. And, well, farm pickers too, like fruit pickers, are largely backpackers. Um, when like in COVID times when we had the negative migration, so many of those workers went home because it was just too hard to afford. They were getting cut off. This is the other side of like if migrants don't get that social support, like we cut them off welfare, well, they can't last here very long unless they start stealing and committing crime. So a lot of them went home back to their families during COVID, and we didn't fill those spots. There was worker shortages. A lot of people forget there was a fruit shortage during COVID because there was no farm pickers, and like I think it was in the millions of dollars of fruit just went to rot. There's so much going on in COVID. A lot of people don't even probably remember that. So that's the question. So I agree that if migration suppresses wages and rises rents and things like that. Totally understand that argument, but lowering it doesn't come without consequences too, I guess is the point. And I never hear One Nation explain what they're gonna do. Because yeah, rent did go down during COVID. Like, I know that because I was a renter during it, and our rent went down. So, it's a supply and demand. When migrants leave, that happens. But even in, like, the construction industry has got a high percentage of migrants working in it too. So it's like, okay, migrants come in and take all the houses, buy all the houses, which I think that's the Australian dream. So the Australian values argument I've always found bizarre too, because it's like these migrants don't share our values, but they buy houses in Australia, which is the Australian dream. That aside, they also construct the houses. So I'm yet to hear the convincing argument of One Nation's plan to get Aussies in those jobs that migrants leave. And as I said, if they have a plan, I'll do a video on it and I'll advocate for it because I think that's what I'm not against that. Lowering migration, having Aussies do more of the jobs, I'm totally on board for. Absolutely, it just doesn't happen. COVID is the example. Yep, like Friendly Jordies, there's a lot that he gets wrong. Um, Magical Gal 1, nice car, by the way. I don't know what model that is. It's really small on my screen. Um, yeah. Look, yeah, Friendly Jordies, I see him as a comedian first too. Like, I've gotten a lot of my political ideas from him. I think he really changed. If anyone who's followed him since he was doing more comedy before he did politics, like, he's always sort of done politics, but he really started doing politics from 2016 onwards. I think the firebombing and the brothers, John Barilaro saga, even though he sort of, he referenced it in the show actually as well, about how, like, criminals run Sydney or run New South Wales, and that he went to China 3 times last year, and one of the times he said was he literally had to leave Australia because he was in danger. I think it's changed him a little. I don't know if that's what's made him cynical, but I think it looks very much like he doesn't have, like, with what I'm doing, I wanna talk to everyone. So, one of my last videos was talking to the right winger Matt. Got some right wingers up. I wanna build a broad coalition and talk about ideas and be willing to change my mind and learn about politics, 'cause I'm nowhere near an expert on it. But he seems very close-minded on that, like, Labor's the answer to everything. And I think he's gotten very cynical. He's said, I think it was in a video, maybe not in the live show, but he said, like, some of the no, I think it was in the interview with that other guy. I should find that channel. It was a much smaller channel. It was, like, in depth about him, his sort of approach. And he said some of the stuff that he's seen or learned about, he can't even put on his channel. So I think he's sort of gone to some dark places, and because he's got that comedic persona, he doesn't seem like he takes life too seriously. I don't think we're know what went on with Friendly Jordies. I shouldn't psychoanalyze him either, but I feel like there's a noticeable difference after the firebombing in how he's approached, um, his style, I guess you would say. Like, it's still comedic, but there's sort of a darkness underlying it. I don't necessarily understand where it came from. Um, Along a similar vein, I've heard and have a bit of sympathy for putting an age limit on voting. Like, if you're a cooked boomer, 70 plus, who doesn't have long left to live, should we cut it's funny, I've gone back and forth on this. I think that, we do so people will say that, "Oh, that's age discrimination." We age discriminate in Australia because we have the voting age of 18. Um, I know that, like, Nick Ryan, one of the Teal independents in Victoria, has advocated for 16, lowering it to 16. And look, I like her in several ways. I think that's a really dumb idea. I remember being a 16-year-old boy, and I should not be voting. So the age of 18 is pretty appropriate, and by that age, you do age discriminate, so people top out. The problem with senior age, like 70 and above, is 70-year-olds come in all different cognitive states, and even, with dementia and stuff like that, it can set in even earlier than that. So the problem with that for me would be the cutoff, like cutting off people's age, because, political issues still affect them, like aged care, pension support, things like that. So they still have a stake in the country. I mean, and you could say young people do too. But I'm a little concerned about, I think there should be an age limit on politicians. Like, in the US, it's ridiculous that they have like 80, 90-year-olds still in office. There should be term limits and age restrictions. But like, I think Siverously, I've seen you comment a few times. Well, thanks for joining the stream. I like to know people's actual names, but I understand why people have their headlines, or their tags, whatever they call it. Yeah, I would just say back to you, why the cutoff of 70? Like, why not 80? Why not 60? That's my problem with that. Um, so I would say, like, a maybe. Like, I wouldn't know exactly how I'd vote for it now, because I think it's a little bit more complicated. It seems a little undemocratic to cut at an old age, I guess I would say. Thread 404, the problem is people are tribal. Reduce immigration equals hate immigrants. Sadly, kind of civil. Well, I've never said that, or that I think people think that. I mean, if we're going to be honest, some people do think that. Like, we've got to be really honest that there is a segment of society that are racist, and that's the reason that they're against immigration. But we can also be more subtle than that and recognize there are genuine economic reasons for immigration. And again, as I've said a couple of times now in this stream, there's also economic reasons why we have immigration, like why ScoMo opened up the doors after COVID. And that spike of immigration, it peaked under Albo, but Albo literally just got elected a few months before. So he's still Labour in a sense are responsible for it coming down faster if that's what you want. But ScoMo and the coalition, which are now where a lot of those voters now want One Nation, they're responsible too. So you'd ask yourself why the right wing pro-immigration, and you'll come to an economic answer. Um, polls do not represent the outcome of votes. I don't understand why. Yeah, polling, especially in the US, because I've never been polled in Australia. I'm interested in who gets polled, how they poll, whether it's like on the phone or emails and digital things. People apparently some polls you can sign to do polls, and that concerns me too. Like people that keen to be polled, I don't necessarily know. But look, that's the thing with polling though, is that it's real polling. The way you should look at it is not a single poll, but like the aggregate. That's why I show like the poll bludger. If anyone knows poll, I think the guy's name's William Bowe. He's on my list for interview. If anyone can get me a contact with him, I think he's got back to my email. You should always look at the aggregate polls, and of course, always take them with a grain of salt as well, especially outliers. And that's why some people commented like, "Oh, One Nation got like 30%." It's like, yeah, that's an outlier. Their average is about 20. So it's great that one poll said that, but then other polls have said like 14%, whatnot. So yeah, you just look at polls as I always look at it as a temperature check of how people feel, because a poll is just decision. It's people saying, "This is how I feel today." That's all it means. I don't take it much more than that. Never really take a poll as fact, but it's good to see where the country's headed. And if you put enough polls together, it can give you a rough idea of how things go. Because they're in terms of their accuracy, I don't know the exact percentage in Australia, but the polls in the South Australian election were pretty close. Like you go back to the polling, you look at the result, they're far off. So polls are also like not completely useless too. They're semi-useful, I guess I would say. Tasmania is a mess rather than crossbench. Yeah, Tasmanian politics is fascinating. I'm not interested. It's a funny thing, like, with my videos, like, for example, May that's coming up, we've got the budget. It'll be 6 months out from the Victorian elections, so I'm doing a 3-hour video on all, like, achievements and non-achievements. I've got a couple more interviews booked, so I'm really trying to be picky with content I actually put out because I do, like, hour-long videos. It's I would say it's about on average 4 hours of research. If I put the research and editing together, it's about 4 hours outside of the recording time. I do this all myself, the thumbnails, the descriptions, everything. So I've got to be selective with what I do. So Tasmania's never hit my threshold of doing a video on, but their politics are and the Friendly Jordies video is good. And I'm one of those people, like, I don't have to be the best at anything, but if someone does something better than I do, then I'm just like, "Oh, just watch their video." An example is like David from Oswald Explained. I thought of doing a series of like really basic political videos on like what is preferential voting, what is like the Senate and all that stuff. But he's got a whole channel full of that. So I'm like, great, he's done it. I don't need to do that. But I might do a video on Tasmanian politics. Again, it being like, I think technically a small state. I know we got the capital territory, but in terms of being like a small state in Australia, it also probably won't get that much views. And I am a little cynical on that too. It's like those niche topics are interesting, but the more niche you make it, the less it's worth actually putting a video on. But yeah, Tasmania's Tasmanian Labour is a mess rather than possible. Yeah, fair enough. Again, I don't really know much about that, but I don't doubt it. Technically, there's no requirement. 7 years old, no requirement. I mean, we have compulsory voting, so I'm not sure what you mean by that. They're probably still gonna fight if they don't vote. I'm a young Thread 4 I'm a young Greens, but voted Labor last term. Still contemplating whether to continue Greens as we go to New South Wales state elections. Yeah, I think New South Wales elections next year, I believe. Yeah, New South Wales state election. Yeah, well, Chris Minns is an interesting guy. He got a lot of popularity through the Bondi stuff and sort of tanked it all with the anti-protesting. He sort of like set his legacy on fire. Yeah, Young Greens. Yeah, I was never a member of the Young Greens. I was a member of the Greens. I haven't gone so far as to go vote for Labor, but I can see why a lot of people have left the Greens. I think Larissa Waters federally. I know you're talking about New South Wales politics. I think New South Wales Greens, if I'm not wrong, don't have a leader. They're pretty proud about that. I'm pretty sure. Um, I don't think they've ever have a leader currently, and that's sort of part of how they operate. They're sort of genuinely grassroots, which I think is pretty awesome. Probably a bit chaotic, but I think Larissa Waters, especially a series on billionaires, that they've got the message to focus more on the economic issues than the social stuff that, it's important, but it can make them come across as excluding certain groups, and I know being a white male myself, not that it's about identity politics, but certain types in the Greens don't necessarily make you feel welcome. So, yeah, it'd be interesting their votes in the next elections because the thing is, with the South Australian election, with this all this talk of One Nation rising, uh, Labor, Peter Malinauskas is nominating, like, this huge shift in the landscape. The Greens basically got the same vote they got last time within a 1 percentage point. So, my joke is that, like, Greens members are not necessarily not mentally stable. I say that as having been one of them. So it's like I'm making a fun of myself. But the Greens, like, electoral stability is pretty crazy, especially federally, and a lot of state elections. Like, they're they're always between, like, 10 to 15%, pretty much guaranteed. So it's a little bit of fun for the Greens. Yeah, my mic is I don't know what's going on with the mic tonight, so I'm gonna have to fix that. All I can see on my end is, like, a visual. It says the mic is fine, so I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I can't fix it. Still bad? I can take the noise. Maybe is it the noise cancelling? I put it on because alright, is that better? Oh, my maybe that's better. I'm just gonna go raw. That sounds weird, but, is that better? I've just taken off all the features. Okay, getting a thumbs up. Okay, maybe I should just take off that stuff. It works well when I record, but maybe live it doesn't. It doesn't work that well. Or maybe I'm talking. I'm trying to talk quietly because I've got a child in the other room asleep, so I can't talk too loudly. Hopefully that's fixed it. If you're around in the late 90s, I was around in the late 90s. I wasn't a voter then. You'd see clearly the drive behind One Nation's immigration policy. Yeah, well, I mean, if we're referring to Pauline Hanson's "Swamp by Asians" speech, ban the burqa and all that, like that's the challenge. And like I'm trying to take One Nation seriously because they're rising in the polls, and there's a lot of the funny thing with One Nation is they've got so much frustration at Labor and the Liberals. Like they call it, some people go as far as to say they're the uniparty, and they're kind of fighting against that. It's kind of like the MAGA in the US and Reform in the UK. They're kind of like, the anti-establishment. But the problem is, uh, I don't really know their end game. But if you get in, you then become the establishment, and you have to actually run like in the. I'll just talk to the Victorian state government, which is the next election we've got coming up, that I'll be voting in. They're then going to be in control if they get enough seats. So we want to know what their actual policies are. So, it's better just turn on. All right, how's that? I might just talk into the mic. Someone's jumped in. Hi, Maze. I see you there. I'll talk to you in a minute. I'll get to the I'll get to the questions in the order. Okay, I'm talking a bit close. Okay, I got the mic up. Okay, so much better. All right, I'll take off all the processing, turn it up, and speak into it. All right, but this is a good test that I know I need. I'm on the cusp of buying a new mic, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, yep. All right, let me catch up to where we were. Yeah, so One Nation, yeah, the immigration. Look, I think it's both. I think some One Nation voters genuinely are racist, and some genuinely have those economic concerns. Some probably it's a bit of both. It's not one or the other, but they have to answer to what the consequences are going to be if we lower that migration. How are we going to get Aussies to do those jobs? And that's why I see, like, in terms of who's governing, I do see Labor trying to do that with workers' rights and workers' conditions. Now, you could say they're not doing a good job of that if you're critical of them, but still, I don't see One Nation's plan to get, because their jobs plan, as I did in that video, is like 2 lines. And it's like, we support full-time jobs over casualization. It's like, great. Well, Pauline barely ever votes for workers' rights when Labor put it to a vote. You know, her absence rate is 50. She's 53% present in the Senate when she votes, so she doesn't vote half the time. And for the time she votes for industrial policy or workers' rights, she always votes against it. So it's fair to say I'm skeptical that she wants Aussies, you know, good worker rights for Aussies that might get them to do those regional doctor jobs or the healthcare jobs and the fruit picking jobs that will be empty if we crack down on immigration. Round out old mate righty tidy lefty loosey recently. Appreciate balanced conversations. Thank you. That's all I'm trying to do. And I know that people get triggered if you criticize their part. That's the thing. I thought that initially what would happen if I like looked at both sides of an issue, that the people would go, "Oh yeah, I can see the other side's point of view," but instead it led me to get attacked by both sides because I criticize. You know, I'll take both sides of an argument, but I've just learned to deal with that. And look, if anything from this channel, if it gets One Nation people in, Labor people in, and it can be like a town square where we can debate, it might get ugly at times. But people might not know YouTube like flags comments. And I saw some in the last video, which I'm actually screenshotting and I'm going to do a video about. I'm going to see if that's a loophole that I can get those comments out there. But look, I'm not saying that I'm going to unite everyone. I don't think I'm going to turn right wingers into left wingers or vice versa. But I think the worst thing we can do as a country is not talk to each other. So my whole philosophy is I'll talk to anybody about anything politically, as long as you're good faith. If you're going to be a dickhead or a troll, then I have no time for you. But if you're a One Nation supporter and you have genuine concerns about Australia, of course I'll listen to you. And, you know, that's probably where I differ from Friendly Jordies, who kind of has the Labor agenda going in. I don't have an agenda like that. You know, I'm still obviously going to vote for someone, and we'll see at the time if I disclose who that will be or not. I still haven't decided that because I don't know who I'm going to vote for. But I think it's fair that we have. I want a place where people from all different political backgrounds can get together. I don't want an echo chamber. I think the noise cancelling is off, so hopefully the audio is better. Looks like people are saying much better. Right, that's good. Yeah, Australia's laid back. We don't have a lot of civic duty. Yeah, I interviewed one of my best friends, Jake, twice before my channel took off, and he's a non-voter. That's another contingency of voters. I do recognize there's a point, like people who sort of say we almost should just write them off because if they're not engaged, what's the point in chasing after them? I don't know. In the US, there's like, you know, what a lot of people don't realize about the US is in the 2024 election, Trump or Kamala neither of them got the most votes. Technically, who got the most was no voters, which was something like 90 million. I think it was like 92, 94 million, low 90 millions. Trump got like 77 million and Kamala got like 75 or something. Like Trump and Kamala were very close in terms of in the mid 70 millions, but 92, let's say, percent, or let's say 90 million eligible voters didn't vote in the US. So over there, it's much worse. In UK, their voting rates are abysmal too. Sometimes not even like 60%. That Gordon Denton election, the by-election that I talked about with the Greens, was I think 47% turnout. So again, the majority didn't vote. And that wasn't the majority in the US election because if you add Trump and Kamala's votes together, it was well over the 90s. So it's not a majority non-voters in the US. But at least Australia, we have, you know, we got 90%. We hit 90% again at the last federal election. So the compulsory voting helps. But yeah, in terms of like people's engagement, it is low. And this is something I'm trying to do too. I mean, I thought this channel was going to be more for everyday people, but because I'm kind of a nerd and I've thought like, yeah, it's pretty dumb to think, why would someone who's not engaged in politics watch a 1 hour video on like foreign policy? So I've just got the political nerds here, and welcome and thank you for all of you who don't have a life and are watching me tonight, because I don't have one either. So we may as well just talk about politics. But yeah, I'm really interested in ideas on that though, about how we can engage like our friends who will vote but not particularly engaged in parties. It's not about trying to win them over to our party or anything, but how to increase that interest in politics. I think social media, some politicians are getting pretty good at that, but it's definitely an area that we could look at for sure. And me being in this space now, it's something I think about a lot. I want your opinion on the real major party. What do you think of Katter? Bob Katter. I mean, he's as Aussie as it gets. You don't get more Aussie than Katter. And look, the reason he's in a serious answer, there's a reason he's elected. You look at his demographic; he represents his people. The crocodile. That video about crocodile. One of the main concerns in his electorate is people getting attacked by crocodiles. Yeah, he's genuine. He's been there too long. Like term limits. Is he 90? I'm going to quick fact check that. 80. Sorry, he's 80. That's a bit ageist of me, but yeah, he'd probably be on the cusp of, like, if we do an age limits for politicians, he will be on the cusp. Sloan Zone analyzes elections more than you do. Yeah, well, he does more videos than me because he does 15-minute videos and he edits. See, I just let the camera go and then don't really edit because I just don't have the time. But yeah, I mean, I don't see it as a race or a competition, but Sloan Zone, I would love to have a chat with him. I've heard him. He did a video once. First of all, he's basically uncontactable. I think he had social media and it's gone, or he might still have a TikTok, but there's no way to. I mean, I don't use TikTok, so maybe you can just message someone. Maybe I should do that. But he's someone I would like to speak to. But I remember he did a video and he said, like, he doesn't want to, like, talk to other channels because it would, like, take audience. So I think he has this weird thing of, like, a zero-sum game where he sees it as, like, taking the audience, whereas I think it's more like cross-pollinating. Like, Conrad from Punters Politics reached out to me before I even had 1,000 subscribers and came on for and talked for over an hour with me. And there's a lot of other channels like that that are much more open. I'm starting to connect with them now, and I've got a few lined up soon. But yeah, Sloan Zone is great. Like, as I said earlier in the stream, he's who people seem to compare me to the most. So yeah, he does analyze elections more than I do, and I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Why Eruption Typhlosion is like One Nation. Typhlosion is actually my favorite Pokemon. So I know Sloan Zone did that video on Typhlosion. Or he had this thing about Typhlosion, his abusing children or something, and then Pauline endorsed him or something. Yeah, Pokemon Gold was my first game I got on my Game Boy when I was like 10. Back in 2002, 2002. And I did Cyndaquil as the fire type. That was my first Pokemon, Cyndaquil. And then he evolves into Typhlosion, and the rest is history. So I will not hear this Typhlosion slander. Australian used to be freedom through simplicity and liberty through an unburdened life with a larrikin spirit. But if we've lost it now, dilemma's 85. I'm not going to assume that 85 means that's your birth year, but yeah, I feel like we've lost something too in Australia. The idea of simplicity, though, like, you've got to look at the society that we're in now with, like, AI, social media, all this digital world that we're in. The world is more complex. But yeah, every so often, like at least once a year, I try and sort of take some kind of a holiday, try and take a break without technology. I don't know how I'm going to do this now that I do this channel, but I often sometimes, like after Trump got elected, I took 2 weeks off politics. Like, I just stopped watching every I think I even, like, stopped YouTube just in general, just watching for a week. I sometimes take a politics detox. I haven't for nearly the last year since I've been doing this channel. Actually, no, I did in August last year. I did a month without posting. But if you're feeling that way, I think a lot of us do fear that as well. The larrikin spirit, yeah, I mean, I think we have that. I think it's, yeah, we're much more scattered. There's no monoculture anymore. We're all subcultures now, and there definitely still is that, but maybe you're not connected to it, or you're feeling disconnected from it. And yeah, I feel that at times too, so I understand. How do we get it back? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sloan is a libertarian. Small L liberal. Teal adjacent. That's 3, like... Thread 4, you need to expand on that, because that's like 3 different ideologies packed in one. I would not say Sloan's a libertarian. He's pretty, like, trusting in institutions. Like, I don't think... I mean, not that libertarians are anti-government, but, there's, like, taxation is theft on one end, and then the other end, they're just like, leave me to eat my sandwich. I don't think Sloan's a libertarian. Teal adjacent, I would say so too. And that's why I said I think he and I have landed in the same place politically. Like, when I say teal adjacent, I'm more on the progressive side of the teals. Like, I'm very critical of their industrial policy and stuff too. But in some ways, they go further than Labor on some things. So, yeah, I mean, Sloan, I don't think he's even disclosed any. I know he's disclosed he left the Liberals, but I don't know if he's disclosed where he's at now. But he and I are probably I came from the Greens, he came from the Liberals, and we've probably landed in that kind of, I do that spectrum. There's a spectrum. Maybe I'll bring it up, that image of the. Just gonna have to find it, which will be the fun part. The where the independents sit. This is just fun sitting here watching me try and find an image, which I'm now not going to be able to find. We all know that one, right? The come on, I'm not going to be able to find it. But now I'm like, it's got in my head that I need to find it. Yeah, it's like basically that we're the independents rank themselves, they rate themselves as yeah. Anyway, they rate themselves as in between Labor and Greens on the left-right spectrum. So the Greens are like 2.9, Labor's like 4.4, something like that, and independents rate themselves as like 3.9. So independent voters in Australia self-report as more left than Labor, but more right than the Greens. And I definitely sit in that space. And I feel like maybe Sloan does too, but yeah, you'd have to ask him, I guess. But yeah, he could be a teal. I'm not surprised if he would vote a teal. Oh yeah, we got the Larrikin Spirit still, but it's rough and going down the drain. Yeah, I mean, defining Larrikin Spirit would be nice. If you mean like Paul Hogan. I mean, Bob Katter has that Larrikin Spirit, although he's part Lebanese, or his Lebanese ancestry. So, yeah, I'd like to fix the housing crisis from both the supply and demand end. Well, good on you. You go get that done, and you'll probably become prime minister. Remember, we also have manufacturing jobs and warehousing. Personally, believe the crime crisis in Melbourne would be reduced if the youngins had something to work towards. Yeah, well, I've got a whole. I'm trying to work out how to put those videos out, but the youth crisis, especially in Victoria, I've got a lot of knowledge on because I work in that. Like I work with teenagers. In other roles I've done that, and it's really related to the cost of living crisis and many of the other crises like the housing crisis, because young people, if you think of parents, like a lot of adults having to work multiple jobs because of the economic situation we're in, a lot of people don't. It's sad. Like I'm not saying this like defending it or anything, but a lot of parents don't have the time to parent or the resources. A lot of people are one paycheck away from homelessness or not being able to pay bills and starting to go into like debt. And then if they have kids and then these kids don't have that community, like if parents are stressed and they don't have that support at home, then it's this complicated nightmare of issues that all it's just a Commodore, the car. Yeah. Look, I could go on rants on youth crime. Let's be honest, it's between it's between what the Liberal and Labor say. The Liberals that just want to punish crime and lock everyone up, and that won't work. It'll get criminals off the streets, but we're just going to have these supermax prisons full of teenagers. It's not realistic. The early intervention is where it's at. And the Liberals do mention it on their website. And I've reached out to Jess Wilson's office multiple times now to try and understand what those programs are, because we know, like most things, early intervention, bail, all this bail talk, well, that's after the crime's happened. And people say, okay, it's a deterrent. Teenagers are not thinking about that stuff. Like it's such a much more deep-rooted issue than just locking all the teenagers up. But it's also, on the other hand of Labor too, is we need to invest properly in these early intervention programs that we know that work. And I got a whole list of those, which, I'll get to that in another video. There's a lot of questions coming in now, which is good. Yeah, manufacturing. I mean, there's a lot of warehouses and manufacturing. I think Future Made in Australia, a lot of green manufacturing and stuff. So, manufacturing industry, I don't know too much about, but I think that's, I think Labor's prioritizing that, and we'll see if that does pick up. Don't make like slurping drinking noises. Chinese not being able to buy land in China should be a big red flag. Didn't even know that. To be fair, I think lowering the voting age is reasonable, considering we don't consider mental capabilities for voting eligibility. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is, I looked at the stats of the election study. I'm not necessarily a populist on every issue. Like, I don't think just because the Australian people are the majority on that issue that's what it should be. but it's something like 87 to 13 that we shouldn't lower the voting age. And in my opinion, that's fair. Like, I don't think lowering the voting age really. I mean, it might even benefit more left wing parties if we're assuming young people are more on the left, which doesn't even seem to be the case with the Gen Z. I know 16-year-olds now are that Gen Alpha. Who knows what the hell kind of parties they're going to support? But I'm not really supportive of lowering the voting age. It seems to be one of those. There's some political issues that get a lot of attention. I mean, this one doesn't get that much attention, but like, the social media ban and all that stuff. It's like, let's talk about more economic stuff about how, so many people are struggling to pay their bills. That's what we should be talking about. So I don't really care about lowering the voting age. And I wouldn't really vote for it. The brain isn't fully developed till 25. Yeah, I mean, if you look at neuroplasticity, the brain's constantly changing throughout the lifespan. But you're right, yeah, they thought it used to be about 18, but it's about 25. And even if looking in males, it might even be later than that, like 27. Only paid to politicians till after I turned 35. I'm not 35 yet, but I think it's the younger you get, you can understand people have other things on their mind than politics. But I think 18s are reasonable. You turn an adult, you can drink, you can drive, not at the same time. But you get all those privileges when you're 18. I think it's reasonable to have voting as the same as that as well. If you pay tax, you should vote. Yeah, that's a good point too. If you pay tax, you should vote. I mean, maybe young people not having to pay tax. I know Jimmy Carr, he's a comedian in the UK as well, but he said if he was in office, he wouldn't make anyone under 30 pay tax. Now, I know that would like decimate the tax base, because that'd be a lot of tax the government would forego. But you'd almost make the point of like those young people, they get screwed on income anyway. Like Macca's can pay. Does anyone know the rate of a 15-year-old working at Macca's? I think it's like $11 an hour. Maybe it's gone up with a little bit of like minimum wage increase, but young workers basically don't pay tax anyway. Like it's really hard to hit the threshold, especially if you're at school. If you're at school and you don't have that many hours, the wages are so shit. Most of them would get it refunded anyway. But yeah, it's a good point. If you pay tax, you should be able to vote. Didn't think of that. Hypothalamus doesn't mature to 21. Folks are migrants. My folks are migrants will place a donkey vote. The bro and I were voting on their behalf. Okay. Voting on their behalf. That you might be admitting to a crime there, so we might just move on. I've never been polled either, and I'm 40. Yeah, I'd love to know how you get polled. Problem with polling is it done on a working day. They only grab people not at work, aka unemployed. Yeah, that's true. Unless someone's so desperate to answer the poll, they go out on their lunch break or something. Yeah, if you want to be polled, join an online survey panel. And I'm skeptical of people that join those panels. Like, I don't think that that's the kind of people I want to hear their political views. No offense to those people, but you can just show up on election day and make your vote invalid. Yeah, and a lot of people do. That's where you have the people that voted. So like it was 90.8%, I think, at the last election. And then you get the informal votes. And the informal votes are the ones of the people that show up but don't actually vote. And they track that too. I think it's like 5 or 6%, which is depressing because that's higher than a lot of the parties. If that was a candidate, they'd get their election costs refunded. So yeah, there is a contingent of people that are disconnected from political life. Ho Chi Minh's. If that's a reference to Chris Minns and some connection to China, that's a pretty good name, to be honest. Masad Minns, okay. We're starting to decline. We're starting to get there. It's nearly 10 p.m. Not sure if I can trust Labor. Yeah, look, my opinions of Labor are well out there, and I think some of my Labor friends are in the chat now. So I'm setting myself up for a roast. I would say like I can't really trust any politician. I can't really trust any party. I think I'm not as far as like parties are the problem, but that's why I do think independents have a place, because it's not about, I don't look at not trusting a party as like that they're lying or that they're going to backtrack, even though a lot of the times they do. It's more just the incentives for the people that rise up. Like it's like any organization, unfortunately the psychos rise to the top. It's to get to the top of an organization requires certain social skills that aren't always the best. Albo, to be fair, seems like, from everything I've heard, seems like a genuinely good person who's just somehow risen to the top. But yeah, I think I look at it from the point of view of like, we should always be skeptical of politicians and parties. So I don't inherently give anyone trust. You look at the policies they're advocating for, and then once they're in, their voting record. And with Pauline, One Nation, a lot of these candidates who are getting in, we have no idea, but we have Pauline Hanson's record for like 30 years now. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that in terms of Labor, but I also agree with that with every party. You shouldn't just inherently give people your trust when it comes to politics. I trust federal Labor, but don't trust New South Wales. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. Labor's this huge organism with different branches and things, and maybe some are better than others. Again, I just look at it from a general point of view of skepticism. Look at the policies that they're advocating for. Like a big one that's coming up is Jim Chalmers' budget. You know, I'm not prejudging it. I'll see what Jim Chalmers comes up with and then go from there. Worked at elections and was doing rounds at retirement homes. It's legislated there's no requirement to vote. Oh, okay. So you don't have. So the compulsory goes away after the age of 70. I'm gonna look. Not that I don't believe you, but I'm gonna look that up because I've never heard of that. That's cool. Hmm. That's not coming up for me. Is compulsory voting? Wait, do you have to vote after the age of 7? Hmm. Sorry, just looking it up because that's fascinating. I'd never heard of that. Okay, so who said that? Magical Gal One. I don't not believe you, but the information that I'm getting is that that's not true. That you're still compulsory after 70, unless. Oh, okay. And you might be talking about. So it looks like there is. It's compulsory, but you could get a medical exemption if you're physically or mentally unable to vote. So you got to file a objection complaint form with a valid reason not to vote. That's what I'm seeing. So it might not be. It sounds like if you just don't show up, you'll still get the fine, but you might have a valid reason. Okay. So I got Maze in the chat calling me a teal shill. All right. I've never given any money to Climate 200. I've never voted for a teal. Uh, I've done some videos where I like some of their policies. I've done a long form video hypothetically discussing a teal party, which would be like what Malcolm Turnbull talks about a centre right party, where I went through what that would hypothetically look like. And at the end of the video, I said I wouldn't vote for that party unless they were better on workers' rights. I know you're joking, Maze. I know you're roasting me, but I'm not a teal. This is like a blue shirt, but it's not a teal shirt. So don't brand me as a teal. But that said, I would always prefer a teal than a liberal, I would say. And if a teal ran against a Labor member, and I lived in that seat, I again would see if there were other independents or anything like that. But yeah, it would come down to probably, I would say I would vote for that Labor person, but I haven't had that situation yet, so who knows? Okay, people are saying the mic has gotten so much better. All right, so I've taken off the thing. We're nearly hitting an hour. Since there's like still the numbers haven't dropped off, I'll go for like maybe till 10 o'clock or so, 15 minutes or so. My mate likes One Nation but doesn't like Pauline. That's interesting because One Nation is like I think it's still called Pauline Hanson's One Nation, or they rebranded, but I think it's back. Does anyone want to fact check me on that? I think it's still just Pauline Hanson's One Nation, or did they take the Pauline away? No, it's still on their website. It comes up Pauline Hanson's. No, I mean, yeah, no, the logo still says Pauline Hanson, so she can't. The ego is there. She can't keep her hands off it. Yeah, they like One Nation, but not Pauline. I'd like to speak to that person because it's in my view, it's like one and the same. It's a political part. It's like Clive Palmer's trumpet thing. It's like all based around one person, basically like the Republicans and Trump now in the US. Like, yeah. Anyway, that's interesting. Greens are pushing hard for gas tax, which appears to have been canned. That's just come out that it hasn't been canned yet, but Albo doesn't seem to be supportive. Labor appears set to rein in investor tax breaks, which Greens have pushed for with the Greens. Yeah, and look, this is my whole point. I did again one of my early videos that no one saw because I had no subscribers back then. That's why I left the Greens, because they were too obstructive. I didn't like Adam Band handling the election the way that he did. Max Chandler Mather, or whatever you pronounce his name, is one of the worst examples of a politician of just saying no to everything. If you're an like that's so this is my other caveat with the crossbench, and when I like the crossbench, as opposed to Friendly Jordies who wants a one-party Labor state, according to his comedy show, which I spent the first 50 minutes of the stream talking about. A crossbench that just obstructs is worse. Like, so I know how that's how Friendly Jordies perceives it, and I know how that's how some of them act. But an example, Teal Shill, all of the Teals voted for Future Made in Australia. Now, it was going to pass in the House anyway, but Josh Frydenberg or Tony Abbott, who got booted out by Zoe Daniel, would never in a million years have voted for Future Made in Australia. Never. And all the Liberals voted against it. So the evident, like, crossbench people who are willing to be moved by evidence and what will actually help people and work with the party in power are the ones that I support. And I think David Pocock also, he's arguable. I think he used to be a Teal. Like, I think he stopped taking the funding from Climate 200 and stuff. So I think he's a true independent again in terms of, like, doesn't take that money. Maybe he does, I don't know. But on the gas thing, I think Pocock is one of those people, like, if Labor push the policy that he's pushing, he's not just going to then turn and obstruct it or say, or then go to the next thing that they're doing wrong. I think he's just got his set of things he's trying to achieve. And if they say yes, he'll take yes for an answer. That's I guess that's to sum it up. My problem with the Greens is they didn't take yes for an answer. And it cost them. They lost 3 of their 4 seats. Yeah, they still got Senate seats, sure, but and I think they've learned their lesson. Larissa Waters, she's being much more cooperative with Labor. Still antagonistic, which is fine. That's what you need to be as a crossbench. But when it comes down to the vote, you don't just cancel something that's good because you want something even better. You take what's good and then you try and get better next time. Like the One Nation talks about cutting the size of government and income splitting. Yeah, look, I'm trying to work out the best way to do my One Nation videos moving forward, like whether I break it down by policy or, like 5 best One Nation policies, things like that, how I do it. But the thing about the cutting the size of government, I actually agree with that too. But this is the thing about how government works is government works like any big organization, like a corporation, where certain departments or things get bloated. People then look at it and go, well, hang on, we need to rein that in. And then they either, at the most extreme, cancel that department, like close it down or reduce the budget. Like Labor's doing that now. They've asked, I think it was Jim Chalmers, asked departments to try and find savings. So Labor, this is the thing, some of the One Nation policies are like, well, Labor already does that. So, yeah, and the income splitting, that's an interesting one too. They really incentivize nuclear family stuff because the income splitting is like when it's couples and they have a child. So it's sort of underhandedly trying to incentivize people to have children. But yeah, again, not against it. It's not the worst policy. Most likely the Greens will be negative, but that's what I'm hoping they'll change. Yeah, if you look at Larissa Waters' social media, look, I think she's not that, like Zach Polanski in the UK, who's just taken the Greens. I think they're now polling. I think there was a couple of polls, and again, it's not every poll, where they were the number 1 party now, like over Reform and Labor and Conservatives. Imagine the Greens in Australia polling as the number 1 party. That's never going to happen. And I don't think Larissa Waters is the person to get them there. Their charismatic leader is not there yet. But I think she's still hostile, but they're taking a much more like positive, open message around the economic issues. And look, I think that will pay off. Although in South Australia, again, they only increased their vote by like 1%, which is within the margin. It's like their voting stability, their electoral stability is like pretty consistent. Even though they lost seats in the 2025 election, their vote only went down it went down 0.1%. So they just have this fascinating ability to just keep stable electoral results. Maybe losing seats, like it's where those votes are. Like, Adam Band, like, lost a bunch of votes in his electorate, but hopefully One Nation can help with crocodile infestations in Victoria. Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yeah, it's actually interesting because as you saw with if anyone saw my federal One Nation video, a lot of the policies are related to Queensland, like the building of the dam in Townsville and stuff like that. So that is a line of attack. I don't think Labor. Again, Victoria Labor. I've like really, I know a couple of people that tell me a few things, but I don't know how they're planning to go after One Nation. They need to come up with something. But that is a good line of attack where it's like, we're not Queenslanders, and some of their policies don't like translate to Victoria. There might be something to that, like that they're kind of outsiders trying to like come in and put these kind of Queensland policies on us. I don't know how that will land because it is much more a regional city divide. Like, a lot of the One Nation votes are regional. But yeah, they making a fun of the crocodile infestations could work. Fun fact, starting in the new financial year, Australia become the first country in the world to give gig workers minimum wage and conditions. Yeah, Labor's done a lot with the gig workers. Do you know what you might have posted at Maze further down? Do you know what the minimum wage rate will be? Or is it gonna be a singular rate for all gig workers, or is it going to vary on what? Is it like delivery drivers, Uber drivers, different? Um, but that's good for Amazon because Amazon is one of the worst companies in the world. Palantir is the worst company in the world. They're basically like everything that 1984 and V for Vendetta and all those like surveillance media's warned us about. They're like that in real life. But Amazon, in terms of monopoly and destroying, decimating small businesses, is the worst. So yeah, I'd like to know those rates. I might even look that up. Gig worker, or is it just? Or it might just be if they're on the minimum wage, they then just get the minimum wage. Oh, okay, $31.30 an hour on the 1st of July. $31.30 an hour. Good on them. Yeah, and then again, I've just found this out from you, Mays. Where's Labor on that? Come on. The reason my cousins and whatnot are voting for One Nation is because they live rurally on cattle stations. Labor is renowned. Yeah, my Labor people, and I think again, I don't want to keep quoting my own videos, but I'm planning to go out to some regional towns. I really want to go out to the Farrer. I want to go out to Albury during the Farrer election. It's coming up so quick. I don't think I'm going to make it in time. But I want to know, like, I think Labor's not even running a candidate. And look, this is a challenge. I understand the political calculation because it's money and an investment. Labor might just go, oh, we're going to sit out and let the right-wing parties tear themselves apart. But I think what the message, like, I get that, but also it sends a message like, we don't care. And it's hard to, like, argue with this I'm a die 0381, your comment about regional people voting for One Nation, because sometimes it's literally just like who's actually showing. And this is what I talk about with like Zach Polanski and stuff, because people go, oh yeah, like he did a great ad but there's no substance. It's like, I would prefer substance with that person who's showing up. But if you're not showing up and saying you're going to fight for people, you can't then expect them to like vote for you, or you can at least see where that frustration in the community comes from. One Nation's doing its job, moving the Overton window. Gives Rennick. Yeah, everyone keeps talking about Rennick. So I don't know if is he open to like interviews, because I would talk with him. Jared Rennick, I think you're referring to. Yeah, and look, One Nation's moving the window to the right. They're stealing Liberal voters, and Angus Taylor's going after those voters instead of the winning Teals back. It seems like they've just given up on the Teals. So yeah, I don't know what to say about that. They are moving the Overton window, and no one's happy about that than Gina Reinhart. But I think ultimately no one will be happier than Albanese when he wins again next time. How are the Greens negative right now? A lot of their coverage is going after billionaires. Yeah, no, I didn't. Caitlin. Yeah, no, they're not negative now. I mean, I would say antagonistic is a better word than negative. Look up Larissa Waters' video with Penny Wong. I think the Labor now say we're at war, but she was basically trying to get Penny Wong to say, are we at war? And she'd refused to say it. So, I mean, you could say that's negative. She's antagonistic to Labor still. But yeah, no, they're going after billionaires and corporations, which is great. But again, that's negative isn't bad, because it's good to be negative towards billionaires and multinational corporations if you're wanting higher taxes. You got like every narrative needs an enemy. So yeah, they worked with Labor. Yeah, maybe you've commented that after I'd said all that. Oh, before I'd said all that, because yeah, I agree with you. Don't be afraid to criticize. Criticism always comes before anger. Resolving it in discussions, reduce violence and angst. Greens negative, more in passing retroactively. They always say not good enough regardless of results. Yeah, look, and I don't like that. If a politician pushes for something and then they get it, or Labor goes, all right, we'll give you some of this and then we'll work further. You say yes, and then you keep moving forward. Yeah, Larissa's been better. Elections always lower turnout. By elections, yeah, it's just because they don't get enough coverage. Because when it's a federal election. It's all the elections happening at once, so the media goes bananas. But when it's a by-election, you kind of got to be more switched in. Yeah, and that's the UK one. Yeah, but I think as well with the UK not having compulsory, so many people just be like, can't be bothered. First past the post and gerrymandering. We don't really have gerrymandering in Australia because all the electoral maps they're based on like streets mostly, or like rivers and stuff. Like they're and based on population numbers and stuff. So we don't really have gerrymandering in Australia. But I guess you're probably referring to other countries like US. May a thousand blossoms bloom. Yep, good on your Kata. Educate them on what type of politics they should focus on. Most Australians should focus on state politics. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the more local you get, the more it relates to your life, for sure. But state and federal are very interlinked. Like, classic one is like funding of hospitals, which is like 50-50. And so you can't really tease. I don't look at it divided up like that. And in terms of my videos, I know that, like, if I do a state video, whoever's not in that state's not going to be that interested. So in terms of like this stuff, federal is always more interesting. But yeah, should Australians focus more on state? Maybe. Sloan is trapped in his own echo chamber. Yeah, it's a little sad. Sloan, I wish, had it like an email I could actually just reach out to him. Because what I would love to set up is like when I do a video with him, I'll burst through, he's got the door in the background. I'll like come through that door and I'll enter the Sloan zone and have a chat with him. But no, he seems to be just fine doing his own thing. And I get that too. I didn't even know what state he's in. I thought maybe New South Wales, but no idea. People thought politics were able to be influenced by positively. I do think they would be more interested. Most people I chat to are way too nihilistic and dismissive. Yeah, there's a lot of nihilism, a strain of nihilism through what's going on, and you can sort of understand why there is that nihilism. Yeah, and I'm not sure yet. All I can say, as I said, like I did the interview with one of my first interviews with a friend of mine who's a non-voter. All you can do is just talk with them and try and make it relevant. I think AI and jobs is a big one. So there's some people who may not be political, but they might be getting affected by AI at their job, or their company's bringing in AI, and they're like, "Oh, is this going to take my job?" And then you go, "Look, Labor's got this institute that might do something about it." I don't think it will, but So you're an ex-Labor member, right? Nope, never been a Labor member at any level. I can see why you would think that, but you should see my videos criticizing them though. You need to challenge Sloan to a Pokemon battle. Yeah, well, Sloan knows I exist because I've got the top comment on a couple of his videos, like the Typhlosion one, the Pokemon one. I also commented on the Liberal Party review, but that's on my personal YouTube thing because I'm just a fan of him outside of this. And then when he like likes it or whatever, it gets the most likes, and then I comment with the Rightest Leftist after that, saying, "Come on my show," but then he never replies. So yeah, when I get a bit more well known, everyone should just comment. Chat with the Rightest Leftist and he'll eventually like see it, but I don't imagine he'll reach out. I've kind of let that one go for now. Sloan definitely sounds left than Friendly Jordies. Well, yeah, Friendly Jordies doesn't even use a left to right term, even though he's clearly on the left. Yeah, and I think Sloan, I think Sloan's, he probably will never get bigger than Friendly Jordies because Friendly Jordies just is like grandfathered in with his 1.5 million followers. So I don't think anyone's going to top Friendly Jordies. But I think by next election, like federal election 2028, if Sloan keeps going the way he's going, he'll be a pretty important voice for the younger voters. Not necessarily like telling people how to vote because he seems to stay neutral on that. But yeah, he's on the left. Like he was in the Liberal Party, but he's seen the light. Taxation isn't theft, but inflation is. Okay. You could maybe expand on. I love when people. No offense to Dillamaz85, I appreciate your comments, but you got to like expand on your thesis because it's like inflation is theft. I mean, yes, but like inflation. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like, yeah, I mean, expand on your thesis and then I'll comment on it. Independents sit back near the vending machine. No, I disagree with that. Some probably do, but like David Pocock, he's out there on the front line with the gas policy. Now, you might not agree with it, but he's not sitting back on the vending machine, assuming you're meaning like, just slacking. I don't agree with that at all. Allegra Spenders released a whole white paper outlining her tax proposal. Again, you might not agree with it. I don't think it's the best thing in the world. I think it's better than what we have now. But a lot of independents are doing stuff. So that might be your own, maybe look at independents in your area. Sloane was libertarian purely from anti-authoritative. I don't think so. I think Sloane libertarians are like pretty skeptical of government. If you look at Sloane's own, he's pretty like trusting of institutions. Like that's what he talks about, politics and all of that. I don't. Sloane being libertarian doesn't land with me. I don't really agree with that. There's no going backwards when it comes to culture. Cultures change and evolve with the times. That's what I was trying to talk to Matt, who was trying to define an Aussie. He was, if you haven't seen my 2 hour video with a libertarian, he couldn't nail down what an Aussie is. And what it sounds like he was trying to say was like someone who has ancestors who built this country when white settlers came. But culture isn't monolithic. It's very varied. We all have different backgrounds. A lot of us are mixed race now, even more than one. So yeah, this going back to a clear defined time. No one can really define the time. And then when they do, you find examples of multiculturalism in that time. Like for example, the first real wave of immigration in terms of the workers was Chinese immigrants in the 1800s. So yeah, it's so vague of a term that when people start to use it, it's a really easy way to win an argument because they can't ever define it. Hey, don't you say that, mate? Don't you say that, mate? He punches people for that or something. Oh, Bob Catter. Look, I'd love to talk to Bob Catter. Like, I think Bob Catter, he's literally that. He is that old school. Like, if you just feed his ego a little bit, he'll talk to you for hours. So I feel like if I did an interview with him, it would be like a 3 or 4 hour marathon, and we probably would have no substance of anything except crocodile policy in far north Queensland. Larrikin spirit means easygoing and mischievous. Think Steve Irwin. Yeah, Steve Irwin, Larrikin. But we have, I would challenge you a bit on that thread 404. There are people like that in Australia. So that's when like we make these sweeping general statements. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe like there's less than there was in the past, but it's not gone. There are people that are like that. But I do know what you mean though too. We don't really have a Steve Irwin, but I think that's also related again to like the monoculture. Because I would even say like a modern one is Chris Hemsworth. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with me, but he's kind of that larrikin spirit too, and he's like one of the biggest actors of all time. So we still do have it, but I know if you're talking about a bigger cultural shift, maybe you have a point. Okay, I'm gonna ramp this up a little bit. Broke through the censorship on the 7 News live stream with Albo's speech tonight. It felt so liberating. Oh, I missed that. What was his speech? Albo's recent commentary on gas export tax. Yeah, look, again, it's a good question. Like, why? Look, I've heard the argument. There was Mr. M history. He has like a sub channel called Mr. M Labor, and he goes like deep into labor policy that like that gas tax then sort of makes us reliant on gas and we're trying to move away from it. So there are sort of good counterpoints to the gas export tax. But I think in this time of crisis, especially with the Iran war and how much these companies are getting, they call it, windfall profits. Like the companies have done nothing differently to get these huge profits. It's just they happen to get lucky with this war. The people should get part of that. I'm fully on board with that message of the Conrad, David Pocock. If you want to call me any label because I agree with that, then go for it. But in this, at least this time, whether it's permanent or not, at least the next 6 to 12 months while these companies are raking it in, we should get some of that windfall profit for sure as the people. Tea slope stream, yep, all right. I do need to have some more tea. I'm running out of voice. Yeah, Labour losing their 90-seat majority, I think that's pretty much guaranteed. I think it's like was 94 seats or something. Maybe the things have shifted, but I think Labour hit their peak last election. As I've said, I think if they steer the ship and deliver on some of these policies that people are like screaming at them to deliver, they might hit. I think they could hit 40% primary, but fatigue does set in and the pendulum swings. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lose some of their seats next time. 50-50 on the gas tax. Would rather see them tackle systemic change. Yeah, look, I think it's like both. They can tackle the systemic change and recognize that we're in this unique crisis where these companies are getting like I mean, give me just to read their financial reports, their annual financial reports of this financial year, and compare it to their financial report of last year. How much more money, like revenue, they made due to this war. And when we see those numbers, we'll probably wish we got a slice of that. We don't have a cost of living crisis. We have a cost of government crisis. We have both. It's I don't know. This like one or the other kind of thing. Like it's often when you like put the two things together, it's often like both. We have a cost of living crisis for many reasons, like greedflation and all of that. And yeah, and governments do have bloated budgets in many ways. They give 30% of the energy companies using a revenue cap. It isn't a cap; it's an income guarantee. The more people that transition to solar, the more we pay for electricity as a result. Yeah, look, that's going into the weeds of Paul. I think you guess you're talking about the gas and then you talk about electricity. But yeah, um, energy is a fascinating field. I got an interview with a guy who works in energy, um, Jack, coming up soon. So yeah, we go into that. Private equity companies have gutted most of the government institutions. Well, that's the thing. Government. Go back to who said Dilemma's 85. We talk about government spending, especially under liberals, the amount they spend on consultants. So they fire all the um, public service workers who are on like scaled income and then hire these consultants that some of them charge $1,000 a day. It's like, I don't know if the right wing, if I'm not saying you're going to suggest the right wing will cut back, but you know, the right wing often blow out budgets of the government too in weird ways. Um, People always forget GST is a tax. Do they? I mean, the T stands for tax. So do people forget GST is a tax? Rate of McDonald's workers is high, something like $14. Okay. Not that much higher. Imagine trying to live in this world when you're getting $14 an hour. That's crazy. It was around $6 when you worked at Macca's, yeah. But again, a house, how much did a house cost at that age? Why not the cap? Not saying you can afford a house on a Macca's salary at any age, but you know, this is how the things scale. Why not the cap of profit instead of revenue? Cap the profit instead of revenue. I think that's what they're doing. That's the windfall profit. Coles and the mining companies negative gear properties to land bank. Oh yeah, the land banking is just disgusting. I know Victoria have a land tax which tries to sort of mitigate that. You know, they have to pay a yearly tax if they land bank, but those big corporations just pay it. So that's the problem. I do like Greg's idea. I didn't see a Greg. Yeah, Greg. Yeah, that's the one I just read out. I agree with you, Greg, too. I mean, we should just the land banking is very hard because you know this is the thing with Labor too. It's like they're very pro worker, no doubt about that. But then I don't always agree that they're anti corporation in the way that I would like, holding these corporations accountable to just get away with so much shit. People strongly dislike Albo subjectively, but I like him. Yeah, I've always said with Albo, he doesn't have the hateable factor like Daniel Andrews, or even Bill Shorten kind of had that factor where people just have a visceral, and this I'm using my gauge of my right wing friends and family and their reactions to people. Even my family who don't like Labor don't really have a bad word to say about Albo. It's very interesting. He just doesn't have. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he just doesn't trigger that thing like if anyone who lives in Victoria, like Daniel Andrews did for those certain types. Um, I'm in South Australia. We have a bread and circus Labor here. That might be a term I'm not familiar with. It sounds like something about you're the government spending guy, so maybe it means something about that. Labor is supposed to have factions, but due to excessive Murdoch propaganda, we believe that's disunity and a reason to vote them out. Okay. Yeah, I know Labor has factions, but I'm not an insider, so I don't know. Do the Greens best represent your ideology? No, not necessarily. My ideology, if I had to label it, would be like social democracy, which is like the Nordic model, Norway and Sweden, a mixed model. So it's not like it's like capitalist, free market capitalism, but the government does have its place to regulate when individuals or businesses get outstripped power. Which you know, alongside that follows like well-funded public services and things like that, a mixed economy, which we largely have in Australia. So, on paper, as I said, Labor says in their constitution that social democracy is their ideology. So I guess on paper, it's actually my ideology is actually more towards Labor. But you know, go through my channel and see all my disagreements with them, though. Their execution of a lot of that ideology doesn't always land for me. Labor does have factions, but they aren't dysfunctional. Wonders what cooperation does. God, I'm nearly gone for half an hour. Maybe I need to like stop. Got a lot of problems with the government stealing IP and pretending it's latent IP using AI. Suppressing valid political discussion using censorship laws. Stifling innovation ability. Yeah, I don't know much about what you mean by government stealing IP and AI. But yeah, innovation. We do have kind of an innovation problem in Australia. We could be a tech capital, but we just, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we don't invest in it. Also, like attracting talent, because I think with California and the US, and where we are geographically in Australia, like we have Atlassian and Canva and a few other tech companies. But yeah, I don't know if we've missed the boat, but it's something that the gap between our potential and where we are, I do agree on that in terms of innovation. And maybe if you're saying it's government policy, yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm not, expert on that area, but I wouldn't doubt it in terms of what we incentivize. I don't know what it says about me, but I've just finished my gym session while listening to the chat the whole time. It says, well, I mean, like if you went to the gym tonight, at least you have some form of a life. So you're not necessarily, maybe you were social and maybe you were at the gym on your own if you're listening to this, but it says that you're politically informed and that's good. My thoughts on Vic Socialists. Purple Pingers, he's on my list too. Jordan, I think his actual name is, I believe. The Vic Socialists are funny. I got talking to one. I went to the March of Australia rally a couple of months ago. I ended up not using the footage because it was pretty terrible because it was just me and the footage was crap. But I talked to a socialist, and the line that I loved was that they think the Greens are too capitalist. That line, I said to them they should put that on a shirt. But the Vic Socialists, my thing with them is I think they have one seat, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what their end goal is because I know like Purple Pingers talks about decommodifying housing, but he's coming at it from a renter's point of view. And I've been a renter and had an instance where our rent was raised 25% in 1 year. So I know the struggle of renters, but I don't think the full-blown Marxist solution that he proposes, and in terms of Marxist, like a pure Marxism of like decommodifying housing, will actually ever happen in Australia. I might kind of agree with it, like in terms of, as I think we should allow people to invest, have investors. And I said we should cap negative gearing at like 2 properties. I'd like it to be 1, but I think to actually get in and voted on as a policy 2 negative gearing investment properties would probably, I mean, there'll always be the investors who fight against that. So yeah, I guess I want to talk to him, and I kind of agree a lot of what the Vic Socialists say, but I think they go too far to the left, to be honest. Yeah, like they're more to the left than the Greens, and I'm further to the right than the Greens. So yeah, like I don't think that I wouldn't vote for them if. Yeah, I wouldn't vote for a Vic Socialist member, but I hear them and I think they have a lot of interesting stuff to say. Teal voters are just people from Blue Ribbon Liberal seats elected by people. That no voting Liberal is suicide for a business. I disagree. If you're talking about teal voters, this is a my example is in Victoria. Monique Ryan, she got a lot of Labor voters voting for her. So this idea that teal voters are all Liberals is not accurate, and independent voters in Australia are much more self-reported on the left than the right. Because if you think about it, if you're like a young person in that area, maybe you've got like wealthy parents or something, or you're just a renter in that area. Labor don't do well in a lot of those areas. Zoe Daniel, the first Teal in 2019, the community groups got together because they hated Tony Abbott and they wanted to get him out. And they were like, we need to find someone that can get Tony Abbott out. Their first thing that they tried to do was talk to their community groups about getting a Labor member. And they realized that that wasn't going to happen. So it's not so much that that they're all Liberals. They obviously, because they're wealthier, they often might have come from being Liberal voters, but it's much more complicated than just heaping teal voters as one group like that. So I don't really agree. Albo is doing the rare earth elements deal for America at a competitive rate to China, suppressing environmental impact statements. Is he making radioactive tailing pits like China? I don't know enough about that, so I'd have to look it up. Citizens, yes, the Citizens Party is an interesting one, Kieran. They got good publicly owned bank. Yeah, I'm not against that. I think Tony Tonkin, who I live stream with, has interviewed what's his name from the Citizens Party. I'll probably just look at, I think it's Rob. Australian Citizens Party is funny because it sounds like one of those like right-wing parties in disguise, but they're actually they're probably a bit more libertarian, I guess. Would you say? Yeah, they don't want to like get rid of cash. They're more like bring back cash. They just code it as like, family first or one of those like even their website's a little older, kind of. Not that old, but yeah, they're definitely kind of like a bit more out there left wing party with some ideas that I think are pretty cool. Um don't know if I'd vote for them though, but yeah, interesting. I like workers' rights, but increased pay does affect small business owners. Less tax is a solution, except on resources. Yeah, like I've talked about that a lot with the capital versus labor divide. That small businesses don't neatly fit in that, and that parties, which Labor does it a little bit with in some policies, small businesses could be exempt or wage subsidies or things like that. There's a few ways to take the burden off small businesses, but still have workers at small businesses be able to afford to live. The party that can solve that would be the party I would vote. Like, if a party had a really clear set of policies around that, I would be really interested in looking into that. Labor people will say it's them, but then show me it. my mate Pauline, my mate doesn't like Pauline, but likes Barnaby Joyce. I love these kind of like internal uh, dislikings of the One Nation. That's getting me going. I find that interesting. So someone before they like One Nation but don't like Pauline. This person likes Pauline, doesn't like Pauline but likes Barnaby Joyce. People are not all the same. Just because someone supports One Nation doesn't mean they support them all. I'd love to know the reasons why. Like, if you ask that person why Barnaby but not Pauline, is it sexism? I don't know. Is it true that making the export tax change will break existing and the government will be penalised? I think the businesses would probably threaten that, but I think a government can impose anything that they want in terms of the taxes. That's like the government's purview to do that. Would it break a contract? I don't know if contracts like I don't think there'd be a contract saying like it has to be this tax rate and there's a penalty unless they no, but that would be the business pulling out of the contract. I mean, that's a good question to ask. Maybe we just chuck that one into ChatGPT. We can't do it. We don't have the technology and are decades behind China. Responding to Greg. Oh, okay. Not universal, but for a bunch of resources. Okay, people are responding to each other, and now I'm not following. Wouldn't you just make it future projects? Yeah, Norway's model. I know a lot of people are critical of Norway's model because we're not the same as Norway. Um, but yeah, they have a huge sovereign wealth fund. We have a sovereign wealth fund as well, which is a lot smaller. Um, but yeah, we could do. My point is between where we are to Norway. Say Norway's here with all of their taxing gas and all that, and their sovereign wealth fund, and we're here. So we're not one of the worst countries. We're pretty good. Australia. This is my whole point. Australia ranks on all the best like human development indexes and stuff. Australia's always between like 7 to 12. We're always like around 10 roughly, and Norway's always like top three. I think Iceland's often that, but that's a very small country. But like, why can't we get to where Norway is in these rankings? Why can't we do things better? That's my whole point. Let's move closer to that. Maybe we can't do it exactly like they do, but that's what we should be moving towards. And so, yeah, so taxing the gas. 75% is a lot. Don't think we'd ever get that passed in this country, but 25%, as I think is the proposal, is fair. I'd agree that there's discussions out there going yes, going at the yes or no. Why isn't there more Ling plan incremental changes? More superannuation. They could do the windfall gains tax starting like 5% with the idea of increasing a few percent. Look, I mean, if Albanese is going to kill it and not vote for it at all, then it's not really worth talking. I mean, it's like if that's what they're going to do. But like I've said with like some kind of cost of living things like freezing rents for a year to just stabilize things when people are really struggling and so many people at risk of homelessness. I reckon it could be framed as that. Let's put the 25% on for 12 months while we've got a lot of uncertainty around this war. So we can then fund a lot of services while these companies are making super profits. I think most Aussies would agree with something like that. I know the corporations never will, but let's not base our policy on what they want, right? So Norway's sovereign wealth fund was built on a lot of oil revenue. Yeah, look, their sovereign wealth fund's a unique thing. We'll probably not have something like that in Australia, but we could grow ours much more based on these ideas. they're hurting investor confidence around the gas stuff. That's the corporation's talking points because they don't want they obviously, that would make their revenue go down. It actually wouldn't because if it's a super tax. But yeah, they just want to make as much money as possible. That's what businesses do. There's nothing else around it. Oh, no SMRT slap. All right, here we go. I'll give you a free one. Okay, there's some great chats going on, like between people, which is awesome. Um, yeah, look, moving on from the gas stuff, because yeah, look, I think the companies, yeah, obviously the companies and the owners and investors in those companies don't want the tax, but the Australian people who are struggling could utilize that. And as I said, a 12-month while we're in this war. Okay. Okay, question that's not gas. NDIS changes good or bad? It's too general of a question because there's so many changes. I assume you mean like the kicking the people off. I think that came as a shock. So I work tangentially to the NDIS in the psychology field. I get paid through the NDIS from some people. It's not all of my work. It's a mess. The NDIS has become very bloated, but it's not a mess in the way that a lot of the right wing talking points state. Because really, what they're trying to do is, I mean, I don't think any are going as far as saying abolish it, but they're pointing the finger at the government when it's actually the private companies who are extorting. Because right wing can never criticize businesses, they're going to criticize the government. Whereas the blame kind of lies somewhere in the middle of like they need better processes to get the scammers off that are just siphoning the money. But the people who are getting hurt, like with Mark Butler's announcement of kicking 160,000 people off, that's pretty unconscionable, in my opinion, because those people are the people who are really struggling in society. And to just kick them off like that so blatantly, and I know that it's over 10 years, I think, so it's going to be staggered. Yeah, it could have been handled a lot better than an announcement like that. And it's constantly, I've done a whole NDIS thing about the what do they call it, Thriving Kids program, which is to try and divert some of the low moderate autism diagnoses off it. So yeah, look, I've got a lot to say on it, but NDIS changes good or bad. I think if you had a gun to my head and made me pick, I would say bad. But that doesn't mean I don't think changes need to be made, though. But I think Labor, they're towing the line of I'm not necessarily happy with how they've handled that so far. Will eventually be a dead end, but at the moment, okay, we still don't know about the gas. How do you feel about an approach like long-term incremental changes, like the changes to superannuation? If they did this, I see what you mean, like slowly increasing the percentage. Look, my thing is like, I'm more of a fan of, because superannuation is different because that's like individual people and that's a small percentage of salary. It's like 11% or whatever it is now, slowly going up 0.5. I think because the war is happening now and the companies are profiting now, you just put in the percentage that like the 25% now rather than slowly increase it. I know the logic of that thing, but I think it's a different my viewing of it is the gas tax I'm always been supportive of, but right now in the middle of a crisis, it needs to happen now. So staggering it year on year, probably who knows what's going to be happening in 2 years, So that's kind of my thoughts. India's change is partly bad, but ultimately necessary. Yeah, the costs are going out of control, but that's for many different reasons that a lot of people aren't talking about. And yeah, on both sides, like not necessarily overdiagnosis, but like, yeah, some things cost too much. Some companies are taking the piss and extorting it. And the systems in place to track and monitor that are not the best either. So yeah, I can do a longer video on NDIS if we want. If you're going to Farrow, you should try to do a sit down with Topher Field. I love Topher Field. Topher Field, if anyone hasn't seen Topher Field, you need to check his channel. He finally responded to me. I talked to him about, it was actually on the NDIS because he doesn't get it either. Like, I don't think he's ever, I'm not going to assume his life, but it seems like he's never had someone that's had to work with the NDIS or be on it and get the benefit. But I'd love to sit down with Topher. Does he live in Farrow, does he? Yeah, someone put me in touch with Topher Field. I've emailed him and he won't get back to me. But yeah, Topher Field, I love watching his videos. Everyone should watch Topher Field. Everyone comment on, this is like Sloan. Everyone comment on Sloan, debate the rightest leftist. Everyone comment on Topher Field, debate the rightest leftist. Damn, that sucks. I get we can't do existing contract. Okay, people are still going. I'll just skip through some of the energy ones. Some great energy conversation. I will say with energy, that's a topic I'm super interested in, but because, yeah, I don't work in the industry, work in it. And yeah, a lot of my knowledge has come from YouTube videos like Punters Politics, Australia Institute, David Pocock. I know I get that sort of bias towards it, and I'm watching, as I said, Mr. M history, Labor videos about it too. But yeah, I need to do deeper dive on the policy, like the actual mechanisms behind how it would actually work. Because obviously Albo's got a reason why he doesn't want to do it. The fights between the factions has broken UK Labour, done irreparable harm. Yeah, UK Labour. I think I follow that too, and I think one of them was saying that Starmer's probably going to be out after May because they've got some other elections coming up. So yeah, UK Labour. I don't know what's going on with them. They seem to have fallen down the trap that Albo hasn't, and Albo doesn't seem like he will. If I'm being honest, he seems like he knows how to navigate that centrist lane. Low 760, my hater? Low 760, if you're still there commenting, can you tell me, are you a hater or not? I genuinely can't tell if you hate watch me or you like my content. Because you never get back, you never respond to me. I said you should come on the show because I think you're my number one commenter, but you never come on. But that's okay, I understand. A lot of people want to stay private. I was skeptical of videos, but you're proven open to ideas and concepts. Sloan hasn't even made it to the Friendly Jordies podcast. I think Friendly Jordies is very selective. He doesn't seem to. Friendly Jordies is skeptical, I think, of people who are critical of Labor. Like, even if you're slightly critical of Labor. I might be fact checked on that, but like, even his podcast people and that too, it's like, not necessarily that you like have to have a membership to go on his show, but I think the fact that Sloan stays outside of just being a Labor shill, even I don't know if Sloan is a Labor person. He's probably more of a Teal, but even that, maybe that's, like he's Teal adjacent, and maybe that's why Friendly Jordies doesn't, they don't. And I know Sloan's probably not interested either. So, see, that's probably people know that from my style. I'm much more collaborative in my approach, probably from the work that I do and who I am as a person. But I know some people do YouTube as their own thing, and I think Sloan is just in his own world. He's in the Sloan zone. No one can get in the Sloan zone. The Sloan zone is its own dimension, and no other political YouTubers will get into it, and that's fair enough. Yeah, the Mr. Mitchell history one, Mr. M history. I watched that video today. The reason why AI say most Australians should focus on state poll is because most Australians don't understand geopolitics. Okay. Do you mean federal does? Like foreign policy? Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure. Friendly Jordy, Sloan, Mr. M, Nathan, and Punters are all cinema. Hey, I'm not good enough to be included with them yet. I'm not even a year into it, but I do this because I love it. Like, I'm not monetized or getting paid for it at all. It's just a hobby for me. I think everyone else on that list earns some kind of money from YouTube. Although Sloan has said like he's gotten back from work and stuff, so maybe he doesn't seem interested in making money from it either. He just seems to like to talk about politics. Punter is a mouthpiece for the Australia Institute. Yeah, look, I mean, this is the kind of black and white thinking. Like, if you look at some of the Australia Institute stuff, if you're a Labor person, I know they're critical of Labor, but I don't like that just dismissing something because, I'm not saying it because Friendly Jordy's told you to, but he's very critical of them too. But I want to encourage people to give everything like a little bit of merit. I think Australia Institute does have a lot of good points on certain things. I know that they've allegedly got some dubious funding. I'm yet to see anyone specifically say anything about that, except maybe Twiggy's, like Andrew Forrest's, billionaires like thing apparently donated to them. Not a fan of that. But yeah, some of their stuff is good. Like most things, it's like no one's all good or bad. There's like, just to write something off like that, I don't really like that style. Punter, he's populist and isn't genuine. He's definitely populist. I think he's doing good. Look, I think you got to look at it like this. This is how I look at it with the non-Labor lefties. We're on your side, really, at the end of the day, because I'm sure whoever Punters voted for went to Labor. So personally, I'm sure his vote ended up with Labor, and he's doing a lot more harm to the right. He's doing a lot more good to Labor side of things than the right wing. Labor, if your point of view of Labor is like they can't be criticised from any angle, that will be the death of Labor, I will say. Labor have to be open to that criticism. And if you don't feel it's genuine, that's fine. But I think this gas tax stuff is very genuine when these companies are making record profits at the moment because of the war. What are my thoughts on Mr. M History? Awesome. I just watched. He's got also, if you like Mr. M History, he's got a sub channel called Mr. M Labor, and you should definitely go on that. And that's where he talks more about labor, and he talks about he's actually got a course about how to become like a labor candidate. So if you're into labor at all, he's great. And yeah, and that's what I said is like I'm not a labor member or anything, but because Labor's in power, I'm really interested in how Labor works and all their behind the scenes because they're a fascinating like organization, if anything. He won't look at Labor low 760 about Conrad, I'm guessing. He won't look at Labor's policies. Do you? So he's got Punters Politics, and he's also got Punters Politics podcast, which goes for like almost an hour every week as well. If you don't view that one, maybe you're just looking at his main channel, which is like 15 minutes. And yeah, look, he even acknowledges he's got the angle of focusing on natural resources and that. So like he talks about a specific thing, but does that mean that he doesn't care about it or doesn't engage with Labor? He definitely engages with Labor's because Labor's sort of against it. So I disagree with that. Slode can't afford to be libertarian. Okay, sure. Libertarians are funny. If anyone watches Sam Cedar, the Majority Report in the US, and his debates with libertarians, none of them can get past the question of like who funds the police because you know it's like taxation is theft. We have private property. You know, it's great. There's never been a time in Australia it was English only. Correct. Regardless of culture, they will never take my ban me. Ban me. Yeah, well, that was the thing. That was that photo of like after the Australia Day march, they all went to the Chinese shop. So yeah, they don't. A lot of those people don't even live by that idea of what they mean about culture. The bloke was a terrible representation of a libertarian. Yeah. Oh man, we're like half an hour behind. I'm not going to catch up to all these comments. It's a poor argument. Too many second generations. Oh, what am I reading from? I'm on StreamYard, so the comments are next to they're coming up on the screen, but I have my own screen to view the comments too, in like a little scrolling list. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. What I'm gonna do, I might jump to the end of the chat. Oh geez. All right, I'm gonna jump back to what are we 10? I'm gonna go from 10:20 down, and once I catch up to the recent comments, then I'm going to end the stream because I'm pretty tired. I've had a big week. But thanks for watching, everyone. Still got about 20 people online. So I had a thought that I was going to do this and get like one or two people. And then I was like, whoever that person is may as well just join the stream and then we'll just have a conversation if it's that depressing. But look, I'm happy with, if I got 20, it's no Hassan Piker, but you know. Okay, NDIS video. All right, I'll do that. I watch Mr. M. Yes, I do. We're all in the Australian politics chamber. Yep. I have my comment replies off. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Like, what? So people can't. Oh, yeah, low 60. Okay, you've been responding to me further down. Friendly Jordies. Oh, the Friendly Jordies podcast. Yeah, I don't like. Maybe I shouldn't be negative. One of the hosts, I don't know the host names on the Friendly Jordies podcast. One of them has he has that Australian accent that's, I can't like, I don't know if anyone has this, and maybe people have this, not probably you people, but I'm sure some people have this with me and my voice. Some voices you just can't listen to. I'm maybe not a great example. I'm probably in that box for a lot of people. But one of the hosts on the Friendly Jordies podcast, he's got that accent and the way of like, it's like when he says and it's like has this angle to it that just like I can't listen to it. So I rarely listen to the Friendly Jordies podcast, unfortunately for one of the co-hosts. But Friendly Jordies likes him, so you know I have no say. I'm not gonna not secretly get him with Friendly Jordies, get on the podcast and knife that guy. You know, I'm doing my own thing. Mr. M on Friendly Jordies, yeah. Well, that kind of proves my point, right? That Mr. M history is like all in for Labor, so then he gets on Friendly Jordies. Maybe I should just do that. Hey, I'll just become a Labor shill. I'll do like 10 videos pro Labor in a row, get on Friendly Jordies, and then just flip back after I've done the show. Yes, everyone has their self-interest. Yeah, like the purity testing of these institutes and things. Because look, Labor has the Chifley Institute. I'm actually, maybe I shouldn't announce this, but I'm going to one of their events, the Chifley Institute, which is a Labor one. So yeah, everyone has a bias and stuff. I just think if we're referring to the Australian Institute, sure, like they probably have funding that's not great, but like you also look at the poll, like they do polling, so you get a sense of like what people think. Okay, we got some UK Labour. W for Majority Report. Yeah, I mean Sam Cedar. If I was like when I hit 60 and I'm like Sam Cedar, I'd be happy with that. Just doing a daily show on politics would be awesome. And debating a little bit. Like, I have that thing that's, like Pete Buttigieg is like that too, where he goes onto Fox News. I've always said, because my family watch Sky News, so maybe it's the only way to get them to pay attention to me. Maybe there's like psychological stuff with that. But I would, if Sky News offered me a contract to be like the left wing guy on their show, they're not going to do like Fox News has that. They have like their token left winger. I don't think Sky News even does that in Australia, but I would be that token left winger on Sky News. I love going into the Lion's Den and debating right wingers. No one even asked that as a question, but that's why I love watching Sam though debate the libertarians and stuff. The New Daily, check their funding low 760. You haven't heard of the New Daily's funding? You should look into where their funding comes from. I'm just roasting you, but like that's what Friendly Jordies says about the Australia Institute. They're not-profit super funds funded. Yeah, no, New Daily's fine. They're pretty good. Came from high school hating the Greens and left labels purely from rage content. Hello from the future. Yeah, I'm catching up to the comments now. I'm trying to race you guys to the end. This could just go on forever if people comment faster than I can actually get to it. Most of it still sticks ever far off. Thanks for doing the stream. We need more Ozpol. Yeah, I look at the Ozpol streamers, YouTubers as a community that can grow, and I don't even care if it's like someone like Topher Field, who is like as far from me politically as you can get, like the libertarian who supports One Nation. I think it's a good thing if we have more people talking about Oz politics because it'll increase people's interest in it. Yep, good stream. Thanks everyone. Yeah, people are dropping out now. This is good. It's already past 10:30. Don't watch Punter's videos. Oh, come on. You criticize him, but you don't watch his videos. When he did the video, okay. You can't say someone doesn't do something, but then you don't actually watch the videos. So, he talked. Actually, that's the thing. He talked to Tanya Plibersek. He had her on. He did an interview with her and went to her house. So, I just fully dispute that Punter's politics is like, I mean, like you say he's in it for the money. Like, yeah, I think it's his job now. So yeah, he gets paid, but his main money comes from Patreon. But he definitely engages with Labor. So you can't say you criticize Conrad and then you admit that you don't watch his videos. I mean, no, I don't expect you to watch all of his videos, but you can't make a sweeping statement like that and then say you don't watch the videos. The Bogan accent. No, it's not even the Bogan. I think if you're referring to that voice, it's not even the Bogan accent because like Friendly Jordies has kind of a Bogan accent. It's not a Bogan accent that annoys me. It's a certain Ali and Mislav. Is that the names of them? Maybe it's Ali. It's the guy that I don't know. After 2011, Labor changed the rules so they can't knife the PM. Yeah, I think Liberal did that too. Isn't both parties have it at like 67% now? It's like you got to get 2/3 to vote you out as a leader. And that's why we don't have any. That's why we haven't had the knifing since ScoMo. I think both parties have it. You have to get 2/3 in the party room. Could be corrected on that. It might be different numbers. Quantum Media 21. Hello, I see you comment a bit. Am I open to coming to chat with the local Labor branch? Yes, I am. We always want to get people. So actually, I got a little story before I wrap up. I'll wrap up at the 2. I know we're past 10:30 now. I'll wrap up in about 5 minutes. So thanks for watching, everyone. I won't name names, but there is the Labor's National Conference in July in South Australia, in Adelaide. I applied to go to the Chifley Institute had like a side thing called like the Labor Fringe, and I applied to go and do kind of what I do is like debate. It was going to be like debating an independent debates 100 Labor members. And I went to the panel. I didn't go, but my idea went and got rejected, which hurt a little bit. But, they had like 150 ideas and they could only pick like 40 of them or something. So I won't be going to the Labor conference, but I want to engage with Labor as much as I can. So my email, the thing is I can't post the email in the chat because I think YouTube has a thing where it filters out because you can imagine the nightmare if people like post their YouTube channels on other channels. So it actually gets instantly blocked. But if you go onto my channel description, my email is there. It's just the rightestleftist@gmail.com. Send me an email. If you can, let me know your actual name. Usually people's name is on their email. But yeah, Quantum Media 21, I'm 100% cool to come and talk to your local branch. I'm in Victoria. So if you're not in Victoria, I probably can't physically go, but I can stream in. Like we can be creative in how I engage with you guys. But yeah, I'd love to come to a local branch and talk. Whether it's like a specific event, let me know. But yeah, I'm totally open to that. And that's something I really want to do is see the inner workings of labor. And as what I do here is inform people about it. So I'm not going to come and join up, but I'll come and talk to you. Yeah. Can't stand punters. He's a populist who doesn't stay on any issue long enough to defend the ground. He's always on the attack. Nothing is ever good enough. You know what? This is a test because I've had Conrad on and I talked to him. The gas like what's being proposed and being pushed forward that Albo's considering, and it looks like he's probably going to turn it down. It would be the test. If they pass it, he's even said punters policy that like channels like his shouldn't exist. Like he doesn't like this should already have been done and then moved on. Look, he might find something else that's a problem, which is fine. But nothing is ever good enough. I don't think punters politics has been tested on that because he's only relatively new. And the gas, when you say he can't stay on any issue, the gas thing has been like his main issue. And he's just shown up. I don't know if you saw his video, but he was at the committee on it in Parliament because he's hired his lobbyist who got him on the committee, like to speak to the committee, standing committee. So I kind of disagree that he's doesn't stay on the issue. He's been focused on it a long time. But it will be, you're right, it will be a test if Labor says we'll do that and then he says it's not good enough. Then I might change my tune because, yeah, you got to take yes for an answer. Would I be interested in similar streams on other Fridays? Yeah, I want to do more of my own. This genuinely was a test because I don't know my place in the marketplace if people care. Look, 20, I think at the most I had close to 25 people watching. For me, that's enough. This is like we're hanging out. 17, this is like a small party. We're just hanging out, talking about politics. So yeah, I'll definitely do this again. It won't be every week because I've got a family. So I can't always do it. But I mostly stream with Tony and I love streaming with Tony. But I also like doing it like this as well. And I might even do ones with guests, like more hangout style, like I do with Tony. But Tony's sort of, that's his show. Like I'm a guest on his show, so I'm trying to do more of my own. Yeah. You did watch the interview with Tanya. Yeah, what did you think about it, Low 760? I thought it was good. Like, I think she was really good in arguing for Labor's point of view, and I think she held his feet to the fire in his criticism. Like she sort of gave it back to him. The thing that I wished Conrad had did, and I actually told him this because like he and I like go back and forth a bit now. She said it's up to the voters to know about Labor's policy, which I agree to a point. But like in this modern world where we're all stressed, if people are parents or they're students, a lot of people don't have time to know all the ins and outs of policy. So she was a bit voter blamey, and I wished Conrad had just showed her his laptop and gone, Tanya, can you show me where I could see all of Labor's policy, like all of Labor's achievements? Because like they have their website, but those are the policy statements. There's no like central place for tracking their progress. There actually is now. Mays, I think Mays dropped into I think Mays might have headed off. I don't know if he's still commenting, but he sent me this. So this is Albo Steezy. I don't think I've commented yet, but I'll chuck it in the chat. So I was doing the Labor scorecard and I was like populating it. I was starting to populate it with the Victorian stuff because I'm doing my videos on that. But that link there, you can send to your friends. It shows you all the progress the Albanese government has made. So it's already a project that's been done. So that's one weight off me. But I'm going to do it for the Allen government, the Jacinta Allen government in Victoria, because I'm preparing my 3-hour video on that. Who was in the Senate? I don't know who we're talking about. Escort Sky News Wrath. Maybe David Pocock? Yeah, that has some American accent. That's what it is. The Friendly Jordies, is it Ali or Ali? Yeah, he has like the hybrid accent. That's what it is. It's like a hybrid Australian American accent. And it's weird though, because I have a friend that has a similar one, but for some reason, maybe he's not as bad as in person. Maybe it's just I can't do it through earphones or through my phone. I just can't do the accent. Sorry. And you can't really change your voice, so I'm probably never going to listen to Friendly Jordies podcast. Not only was a Senate committee, one of the gas lobby CS showed up and kind of implied she was there because of punters' advocacy. It's the East Coast private schoolboy accent, maybe. Yeah, Ali is from Pakistan, so he has the American type accent. Yeah, that's what it is. It's the guy with the semi-American. Yeah, yeah, the Pakistan. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, concept. I love the concept of what he's been doing. A crowd-funded lobbyist. Yeah, look, I think the summary on punters, I get the people's skepticism. It's like he's definitely, and I got this when I was talking to him. He's like he's media trained. Like he's a teacher. He was a teacher. He knows how to present stuff. And for some people, that might come off a bit like performative. But I 100% like he's doing good. Like you look at what people are doing for society or like what their kind of project is, he is doing good. Whether you agree with him or not and you think he's just trying to tear down labor. The thing you got to remember too is he started his channel in 2024 with labor in power. So goes back to, I was saying this earlier in the stream, is like the counterculture where Joe Rogan's in this weird spot where it was like cool to be like supporting Trump when he wasn't president, and now Trump is president and the vibes have shifted. Joe Rogan's in a weird spot. So I'm not saying punters politics is attacking labor so strongly because he came up during that. It's just who's in power now. Labor are the one that can make the change to the policies, and those are the policies he cares about. And I think those taxes on the gas companies will help Australians. So that's why I agree with him, and I don't think he's not genuine about it. He might have a style that comes across that way, but I mean, I like his style. Um, so, but I know it's not for everyone. I know I'm not for everyone. So, you're already the independent right of green YouTuber, except you're interactable. Yeah, I mean, I think that's me as a person. Some people have said like, oh, what's going to happen when I get much more followers? I've thought about that, like, because there is Patreon. I've had a few people even, when I say a few, like two people. I'm not going to make it sound like it's a huge idea, but like doing a Discord or something with like a community, like a Rightest Leftist community. So I'm always going to stay in contact with people. Um, if I'm not going to get famous, but my goal, as I've said, my goal to get more followers, like if I get to like 50,000 or 100, like if I get that many thousands, the best part of that, the clout will be used to like then get politicians, get interviews with them. It may not happen, but that's my intention to get clout for that reason. But I'll never not interact with my fan base. I'll always find a way to do it, even though it might have to be in more creative ways if the things streams go higher and stuff. Okay, people say I'm a good streamer. Oh, thank you. I'm losing the chat. I'd agree you'd have to give guidelines of what to ask. It was very general. Yeah, and Punter's got the billboards. He's got those stickers. They're doing like the meat pie, like the tomato sauce that pie shops charge for tomato sauce, which I agree is 100% un-Australian. So he's building sort of a brand of like there's these things in Australian society where they could be quite easily fixed. So why aren't they? And I know that gets people's back up, but I like it. You'd not like my voice. I got an American Aussie one. No, that's not, as I said, like, so one of my best friends has that American Aussie hybrid accent and it's fine. It's just there's just that certain inflection. So if you have that certain inflection, yeah, then I'm sorry, I won't like your voice. The Australian lobby is doing the same, but to end foreign lobbies. Yeah, foreign lobbies, I don't know. I've heard there's like a Zionist Israel lobby in Australia, but they're so underground that like we don't, because there's APAC in America. So I might look into that stuff too. At the moment I'm doing top level like policy stuff, but like the behind the scenes lobbies and stuff, I don't, a lot of it's hard to get. It's all opaque. It's hard to get info on. So, yeah, I might look into that. Merely for watching Hanna Barbera and Scooby Doo, I got a bunch of Americanisms. Oh yeah, you're raised on TV. Awesome website. It's about banning foreign lobbies. I love that. You'd be surprised. In fact, you don't have a TikTok. Says a lot. I actually do. So if you look at my channel description, I have Instagram and TikTok. I just never post because I hate social media. I've got my own personal social media, but I never use it. And my friends send me memes and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, did you see the thing about Trump?" And I'm like, "Nope, no, I didn't." But then I miss getting invited to events too. So it's not all. I'm at the point of like we should shut social media down though. I'm like very anti-social media at the moment. I think it's doing much more harm in the world than any good. Lobby group started by Shallow Cal. Yeah, can you get my email in my description, Dilemmas85? Like all this lobby stuff I'm fascinated by. I want to like cross check and verify stuff because a lot of this stuff can get into like the realm of conspiracies. But if you've got verified stuff on these different groups, send it to me. Because I'm not afraid. Like this is probably the benefit of not being well known, like, not being a friend of Jordies, is I can probably talk about that stuff and no one's going to come and assassinate me. Now maybe they will, but you know, I've got it on stream now. I'm not suicidal, so if I just randomly stop posting, you know, I went too deep on a particular lobby group or something. On the gas tax, I believe it will be introduced when the current contracts expire. That's 2030, 2031. Okay, so maybe it's a contractual reason. I that seems like a cop out to me, where it's like that seems to be just a way to push the can down the road, like we did with the oil refineries and stuff. It's like no one really wanted to like be the responsible one to pay for it or to have the difficult decision. But to say, yeah, that'll come in then. Crisis. Come in then. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so maybe that is the reason, but they're not saying that's the reason. Yeah, because it's a bad reason. That's why. Their time is actually one opinion. Nationalize all mining operations. Yeah, look, stuff like that, the nationalizing things, that gets, you know, if we're labeling stuff that gets more into like socialism of like public ownership. Again, mining operations, not against it in spirit, but this is where, you know, I'm more on the capitalist end of like, sometimes there are things that private companies do better. Like, I'm probably more in the end. Again, with mining, I don't know all the specifics of the supply chain and everything, but I'm sure that there's probably more efficiency with a hybrid of some private companies, you know, with that profit motive and stuff. But look, I might be wrong, and maybe nationalizing it is the best thing. But then also you got to look at the political reality of like, will it ever happen in Australia? Because it's good to think about. This is what I say with the Vic socialists, decommodifying housing. Sure, I probably do agree with that, but is that ever going to actually be a thing that happens? IJAC is the name. Israel's, well, there's IPAC in US, but we have IJAC, do we? I'm gonna look that up. IJAC also sounds weird saying it out loud. IJAC. Oh no, it's real. Australian, Israel, and Jewish Affairs Council. All right, bookmarking that. Yeah, I'll leave that there for now and I'll look into that later. IJAC. Not a great acronym to say out loud. Get up for being on a similar train for more than a decade. There's only so many supporters, money to spread. Yep. Yeah, that's a problem with being, you know, Kyle Kalinske talks about this in the US. Left wing streamers and YouTubers are always more poor because they're anti big business. They're not funded. Like Tim Pool and all those, Dave Rubin, those idiots that will just take hundreds of thousands of dollars from like these Russian connected things because they don't look into it. And we'll just say whatever. Like Tim Pool literally gets printouts of what to say. Because, you know, then if they showed that thing of like, and when Charlie Kirk was alive, it was like Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Tim Pool, they all said the same thing on their Twitter with like a few words varied. So the MAGA gets their talk. I know a lot of them have left MAGA now, but that right wing slop machine is so much more organized than people realize that they just get their talking points literally like sent to them. And then they take that money, they get paid to say that stuff. So I'll never do that. And I'll be poor because of it. So integrity has a cost. God, I'm trying to catch up to these messages. I thought I was like, if I catch up to all the messages, I'll wrap it up. But people are typing faster than I can talk. It's a foreign one. I think the big target group is making out to be profit tax drive. Yeah, look, the gas stuff, look, it's a whole conversation. My position is I'm pro that, especially in this time of crisis. Like, I was interested in it when Pundits Politics talked about it, and I was like, if that was something I would vote on, I would vote for it. But now, after the Iran war and these companies getting, like, we don't even know what the revenues they're getting, to be honest. Like, they're probably raking it in right now. We'll probably see on their financial reports how outrageous it, like, if we end up not taxing it, how much money we could have lost. Recent West Sydney crime family. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, and the crime family, that's so Friendly Jordies went to China. He was like exiled to China last year. That's when he went blank. There was like a couple of months he didn't post videos. If you don't want threats, don't interact with the building industry and them. Yeah, look, I know organized crime is a huge part of the economy and society and all of that. But again, you know, like we'll see. We'll see what I do. I'll be careful who I go after. Most mining companies use private contractors to service their operations. If you nationalize the industry, Yeah, okay, maybe that's the part. So I'm a die. That's the part I don't understand. You're saying so they use private contractors, but you nationalize the industry, but the profits don't ship overseas. So you are taking some parts that are private, public, right? Like the public, private overseas companies own it, so we're buying it back. That's maybe I'm send me an email and outline what your idea is because I sort of get what you're saying, but to me, that's sounding like more like a socialist approach, which again I'm not inherently against. But you know, sometimes you go, there is a reason why things are the way they are, and if it's a bad reason, like because these companies making lots of money, well, actually, this is a Pauline. This is where we'd agree with Pauline because she wants to stop that on agricultural land. So maybe we're Pauline. Maybe we're actually One Nation voters if we don't want to if we want to take back foreign ownership into our country and nationalize it. Are you really famous if you haven't been attacked by organized crime? In this essay, I will, and you've just been shot. Yeah, yeah. Look, the thing is, organized crime. I find that fascinating from a distance. And yeah, I probably don't want to get involved in like doing that. Pim Tool mention. Yeah, I probably shouldn't mention him again. He doesn't deserve a mention. But he should also just go bald gracefully. Get rid of the cap and just shave it. I would do that. Like my hairline isn't great, but I've still got hair. But if mine started going, I would shave it. Not wearing a cap. It's very fair to say it's a cop out. The alternatives, hey Japan, thanks for the Megami frigates and all that fuel. Okay, we're still on the gas. Okay, I'm catching up. Lol. Seriously. Yeah. Tim Pool. Yeah. I mean, it would be an easy life. Imagine that. Like you just take hundreds of $1,000s, don't ask where it came from. You just get this piece of paper every morning that you just have to read out on your show and make it seem like you're just coming up with it yourself. Um, yeah, maybe I should do that. Yeah, in like 2 years' time, I'm like full on just like going for Pauline being prime minister. Then you'll know that I've taken the money. If it's APAC, then our words would be IJack. Yeah, IJack. See, I'm not really a comedian. I've done some stand up comedy, but if I was like a friendly Jordies, I would do the IJack joke nonstop. Yeah, Tim Pool carrying water for Trump. He's one of the few that's still on the Trump train, which is bizarre. But again, probably ready to retire soon with the amount of money. Stinky bean. Okay, we're roasting Tim Pool. I'm all down for that. The more you talk, the more we talk. Okay, this is becoming like a feedback loop, isn't it? It's arguing about the middle person, whether that's public, government, or private. Mining companies here in Australia are 80% foreign owned. Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. Yeah, no, the foreign investment. I guess what I'm confused about is the nationalizing it. What's the process to take that back? I guess because it's like people are not happy with government spending. These mining companies, those that 80% is a lot of money, right? We should never have sold it in the first place if that's kind of what happened. Which I know the mining companies, like, yeah, I know we're talking like BHP and that. Yeah, this is where I got a gap in knowledge. I need to like look into that more. But I don't disagree with you. But what I would look at is like that's probably going to be very costly to buy that back or nationalize it again. Down with Gina. Look, I don't mean down with Gina. Like, I don't care about people's personal life. She can go and be rich and whatnot. Like she can. I'm not against billion. I'm one of the lefties. I'm not against billionaires as a concept, but her being worth 38 billion while we have so much increasing poverty in Australia is a problem. If we didn't have such a problem at the low end, like with the inequality, she can have as much as money as she wants. I don't have an upper limit on people's wealth. It's just when we have the floor shouldn't be as low as it is in Australia with how like what we're talking about with our resources and how things are set up. The floor should not be as low as it currently is. So to tax Gina to raise that floor, to bring her wealth down, to bring everyone else's up, all the people at the bottom up by funding all those services. Yeah. If that's how you mean down with Gina, then yes. If you mean it as like anything else, a personal life, I don't give a shit about her life. Although the portrait was weird, and I think that was humiliating for her. And I'm not going to say I wasn't a little bit pleased by that. Life is easier with a shaved head. You never go back. Yeah, I think I have a weird head shape though. I was told I had like an alien shaped head when I was little. So I'll look like a xenomorph or something. So I'm not going to shave my head yet. It's just simply not how it works. The price is locked in contracts. They can't just get the world spot price. Seriously, you know, seem to know a lot about this, so I'm just going to let you be the expert. Government of private contracts and permits. Bob Hawke had a crack, but he got cooed. Yeah, and look, that's Friendly Jordies' argument, isn't it? Like Kevin Rudd and Gillard, or around the mining minerals tax, is like they just get sniped. No, again, we're making a lot of assassination references tonight. Like they get politically assassinated, shall we say, not literally. But I think Friendly Jordies is wrong on that. I think that times have changed. Um, I like, especially with the young people, and you got like Toilet Paper Australia, who is just going hard on social media. We haven't even talked about Rashan from that, who's an awesome guy who hopefully we'll be talking with. Um, I think Friendly Joys estimates, especially, and also the demographics, like the boomers are starting to like die off and not become a majority anymore. And I think Jim Chalmers is seeing that with the budget, like gearing it towards um, the reducing economic inequality, especially for younger generations, because they'll be the core base of voters next election. I think the situation has changed. We're not in the Bob Hawke era anymore. We're not even in the Kevin Rudd era anymore of the media landscape. So people like myself and Conrad and Friendly Jordies and all that is like, if we all, what is it, band together, not banding together like what the right wing do with their scripted talking points, but if we educate the population about how screwed we're getting, I think that's the way through, like electorally doing it, getting people to know what they're voting for, to like, so that right, people like Murdoch can't topple a prime minister as easily as they used to be able to do. The upper limit should be there. Yeah, look, I'm not a fan of like multi billionaires, and Elon Musk, he's worth over 800 billion. I'm definitely against that, like obscenely, like on the obscene end of wealth. But someone who, let's say they're worth like $10 billion, and they've built their own company, and that's just what the company's worth, and it's just that thing, and it's not necessarily a monopoly, and you know they're following the rules. I guess that's what I mean. Is I don't pair the well. I don't want someone not to be wealthy just because of the amount of wealth. It's because of what they're doing around that, the anti-competitive practices, or the mechanisms that keep them wealthy versus other people. So yeah, yeah. No, see now my lefties they start to debate me on this. This is where the rightist leftist comes out, where it's like no billionaires, but the thing is too, you've got to realize with billionaires is it's like it's not money in a bank. It's not cash that they can withdraw. A lot of it's just abstract. Because soon as there's like a downturn in the stock market, they can lose billions. There was that day that Mark Zuckerberg lost like $10 billion. So a lot of it's like fake money anyway. Like Elon Musk can't just withdraw 800 billion, but still the way that he got that is absolutely absurd. So I disagree with that. So I take a very nuanced approach to it. You know, I know Kyle Kalinske. That's one big thing I disagree. He's like, every dollar after 999,999,000 should be taxed. So there's literally no billionaires, but it's like it doesn't. Again, that's actually not how the wealth works either. Um, Kind of, the business valuations vary like day to day with the stock market and stuff. So billionaires are kind of not really. I guess what I mean is, yeah, it's vague numbers once you're getting up into the billions. I just don't want people to be struggling in poverty, and if we have to tax those billions to get that, then I'm all for that. I don't really care what the number that they end up on. Go, we're all over the place with this chat. Okay, shave my head. Kev's a billionaire. Kev's a billionaire. Yeah, oh, and his wife was it an employment agency or something? You know the one that's annoying to me is Peter Dutton's wife was like a childcare magnate or something, and a bee in my bonnet I've got with childcare versus Medicare is most of my clients in my business claim Medicare rebates, but if they don't show up, I don't get to claim the Medicare. Like a cancellation, I'd get $0 if a client cancels. Childcare still get the full payment. And is that because politicians' wives own childcares? I think it's not fair. Baby Boomer Jen was last seen with Bill Shorten's election. It's been different, yeah, and that's why I don't think Labor's going to be voted out next election. For that reason. God, it's 11 o'clock. All right, I need to wrap this up. Where I differ from Friendly Jordies is Labor gave up on Hawke's Rudd's ambition since they were cooed when we should be pushing. Yeah, 100%. That comment is, of all the comments tonight, that's the one I agree with the most. And I started this stream by talking about going to the Friendly Jordies show and how cynical he's gotten, where he's like, just wants a one party state, that party being Labor. at TSIP. I think he's got trauma. To be honest, like a psych term, but it's like I think a lot of Labor people have unprocessed trauma from that time of the Rudd era in particular, and the Greens' involvement in that too. They need to like move on. I think they're looking at the media environment, the political environment like that time, but so much has changed since then. It's not 15 years ago at the Rudd time. It's the Gillard, I guess, was Prime Minister 15 years ago, but like the population, I think, is more towards Labor than anything. There's still the right wing slot machine, but that's the minorities now. And like, even though One Nation's rising, then I think the boldness that boldness wins them votes rather than doesn't. And I think that's where I disagree with Friendly Jordies. He sees it as like, well, we shouldn't go for that because we got knifed in the past. But it's like Murdoch's basically on his deathbed now. He's like 93 or something. And I know there's like his son and all that, but they don't have the influence that they used to. Heidi in the house. Hello, Heidi. Heidi's going hard on the messages right at the end. Okay, low 760. One last thing on. Okay, you've got one last thing to say about Conrad. It's the last thing I'll hear. But I'm okay. See, criticism. You can criticize him. Punters is the comment section. It's full of cookers who think One Nation will fix it. Okay, I don't know if that's true because I don't know if you know who they vote for. But wouldn't we want the cookers, like if Conrad, because he had some politicians on the last election cycle. Let's say like some of our people, like Conrad has someone on that is more, maybe not a Labor politician, but might be like Greens or something like that. Having that cross pollination, if like cookers are watching Conrad, that's a good thing. That might pull him away from because Conrad he's not One Nation. He's very against the right wing parties. So if you have right wing people looking at Conrad, that's like for me, I see what right wing people like Matt, who kind of got roasted. Sorry, Matt, if I don't know if you're watching, Matt, but I didn't want you to get personally roasted. But we want right wing people to be getting these other ideas, and they might then change their mind and who they vote for. That's how you win That's how you build a winning coalition. So that's a good. I don't see that as a criticism. I see that as a good thing if he's got right wingers watching him. If he changes to that, then I would have a problem. But if he's bending them to his will, then that's good. Modern day money is intangible. Yep. 100% confident about stopping billionaires from existing. Not 100% confident. We need to do this. Yeah, for me, it's all the stuff that keeps them It's the stuff that keeps the wealthy and makes them wealthier once they're wealthy. Those are all the things that we need to close. And then what their wealth ends up after that, like this capital gain stuff and all that, it's not going to guarantee that billionaires don't become billionaires anymore. But if it brings up the floor, so people can start to afford houses and we can move people out of poverty, I don't really care what people's maximum wealth is. I care about the bottom being brought up. And that would be, and as I've said with wealth taxes, that needs to be done by taxing the wealthy. But if they're still billionaires at the end of that, then I don't really care, as long as we've got the floor up. And I know people disagree with me on that, but that's fine. We stop the growth. I don't like the violence socialists suggest. Yeah, I mean, not all socialists. Some talk about violent revolution, but yeah, they're a fringe, and we disavow those people. Did I go to a show in Melbourne? Yes, I did. So yeah, I talked about it. Low 760. I talked about this when I opened the stream while people were signing on. Yes, I did. Go to a show in Melbourne. Because there's too many decisions to be made by dumb politicians. Yeah. Yeah, no, I need to go to bed. Yeah, Caitlin, that's the last quote. Yeah. People on the left, I know Labor see people on the left as a threat, but we're not. Our vote goes to them. And if they move more towards us, we would then vote for them. You can't get upset that we don't vote for you when you don't put the policies that we want. Friendly Jordies needs grounding from his friends. Yeah, I don't doubt that. Yeah. Like his life and the stuff he went through with all the crime stuff. I don't doubt that he can get his head in the clouds. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone. I could do this all night. I've clearly shown that I have no... I need to find like some metric to stop. I said I was going to need to go for an hour before I started, but I've really enjoyed doing this. I'm surprised that I had so much engagement. So thanks everyone for watching. Yeah, as I said, like my email is in my every video that I do, I post my email and it's in the channel description. So if you've got anything, follow up ideas, you want to come on the show and chat, like I'm doing conversations with people for up to an hour. My one with Matt just happened to go for 2 hours because the immigration stuff was just too good. So I had to try and unpack with him, and we sort of got somewhere in the end. We got some agreement. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to wrap up and go to bed. This is the Rightest Leftist. I'm Nathan Ogilvie, and we'll talk again very soon. Thanks for watching.